Hello and welcome to Undrafted, a Dynasty game theory podcast brought to you by the Undroppables. I am your host, Scott Belanger, a.k.a. Jax Falcone. You can find me on Twitter at Dino Game Theory. This is episode number 224. Let's roll. We are starting to get some training camps. The doldrums of the NFL season are finally starting to feel a little bit closer. The NFL has us on a string, 365 days a year. It's just unbelievable. And the ebbs and flows are just like clockwork every single year. And we are, July 22nd recording this. And it's just the slow drip, right? It's like we search into every little thing, looking for some news, looking for some actionable information, looking for a firework going off in a player's face. Like, this is what we're here for. So nobody better to discuss all of this and more than my very, very good friend and fellow masshole, Mr. Andrew Cooper. You can find Andrew Cooper on Twitter at Coop A Fiasco. You guys have had seen Andrew Cooper on this show so many times, but does such a great job at Fantasy Alarm. That's where he's at, and I hear him on Sirius XM all the time. Little jelly. I'm a little jealous. I love it. I want to hop on there with you someday. So without further ado, Mr. Andrew Cooper, what's up, buddy?
Brother, I got to get you on. And guess what? I got the reins to the whole show this week. So if you want on, man, I can sneak you on. Plus, the time slot we have is so much better for where you live. We're 6 to 8 p.m. So, I'm telling my wife, hey, I got to work every Thursday and Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. forever. And then I also have to work Sunday morning. So just in case you wanted to ever do anything, the answer is no. So yeah,
Right.
we'll definitely get you on, brother.
There we go. Let's do it.
Be great.
I'm ready to rock.
And I'll tell you what, dude. I will say this about training camp, right? Is that we do get some solid news at the very beginning. We're going to get bombarded with highlights and stuff that mean nothing, right? Guys going up one-on-one against another player, and it's a forced throw, and the guy makes a contested catch, but it doesn't mean anything. But at the beginning of training camp, we get a ton of information with just who's there and who isn't, who's on the PUP list, who's on the NFI, right?
Right.
It's like when your buddy's getting married and you got a bad haircut, like you can't hide. You can't hide from that. And if you burned your eyeball out with a firework, like you're either there or you're not. So we're getting information now, at least with guys like Najee Harris. Chris Godwin didn't show up, right? And it's also telling who is showing up. The Patriots that came out with their list, and Mac Hollins is on it, and Austin Hooper's on it. Well, who's not on it? Stephon Diggs. Right. Yeah. So it sounds like he's going to be practicing. So we are getting some meaningful info here. Absolutely. Yes. And then, of course, we'll be back to the hype videos and the coach speak and the trickling in and the what doesn't matter doesn't not. But at least these first few days, we get something that matters, right?
And that's what's so smart about what you just said is understanding and deciphering between the stuff that matters and the stuff that doesn't matter. And yes, an injured player or a non-injured player matters. A hype video on a really cool route, pretty insignificant.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. And trust me, they will come and they will get you. Someone will get you. I get got every year with something, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it doesn't mean anything good or bad, but in your mind, you think back, you're like, oh, yeah, JSN. Remember, I saw that catch. He made that one-handed catch in training camp, and that's when I knew he was going to be good. That actually didn't mean anything. It meant nothing. Yes. You know who made a ton of one-handed contested catches as a rookie in training camp? John Dotson. Like 100. You couldn't get away from him, right?
Arrogant hands, as I recall.
Arrogant hands, And then you realize that he was going up in drills where they were going to throw it no matter what. He was creating no separation, which obviously leads to contested catches. And he was catching the ball against guys that were ranked 89th out of 90 on the depth chart and didn't even make the team. They didn't even make the first cuts. So, you got to separate actionable from non-actionable. We're going to do our best to help out with that, but just know, good hype video, I will be retweeting them.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, let's enjoy the chocolate
football,
cake,
baby. Yeah.
But just understand you can't live off that. So Justin Boone was on the show a few weeks ago, and it was right before he made the move from the Score to Yahoo, and I was like pimping the Score. And then after the show, he's like, I might be making a move. And I'm like, all right, well, the score's great anyway. He's like, I love him. He goes, it was funny that you did that. And so, the next day or whatever, he's like, I'm going to Yahoo. Anyway, long story short, we're Justin Boone's so kind, invites us to this little mock draft. I guess we're going to do an article or whatever the heck, some content around the mock draft. And lo and behold, who do I see but Mr. Andrew Cooper in that same mock draft? So I thought we could talk about that real briefly, just because it is a dynasty mock and it is with a lot of sharps. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I always treat these as if they're real. Like, I don't go in and say, "Oh, I'm gonna flag plant my guys," or "I'm gonna do something crazy. I'm gonna try some
Right.
crazy strategy here." And so my general dynasty startup strategy is always the same. I have a big list. I keep 3 lists essentially, mostly mentally, but you can actually make the list if you want. And what they are is the first list is just the guys that are the young stars for this format. Simple as that. They are guys that you'll draft and redraft in the first couple rounds, and they also are young. And then you just you take that list until it's exhausted. And in
Yep.
this, it's super flex, right? And that list goes for quite some time. So, like, I started my draft with Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Like, young, good. At a certain point, you get to a decision point, and I will look around and I'll see, okay, who in this league is like really going for it? Who is kind of playing for the future? Who might want to trade me their picks if I'm going to go for it right now? Like, maybe you're playing for the future. Maybe I'm playing to win now. Maybe I trade you some rookie picks and you trade me your picks. And then I decide if I want to go in or not. And then you lean into either win now players or you lean into future guys. And at a certain point, you have to make that call because you're going to get to guys decisions like Christian McCaffrey versus Caleb Johnson or RJ Harvey or some of these rookies where you wouldn't in any moment in redraft consider drafting those rookies over McCaffrey,
Yeah.
right? But in Dynasty now you have that call to make. So like we're getting to that part of the draft now. I took 3 wide
That's
receivers,
right.
I took 2 quarterbacks. Now I'm gonna I think I could probably get away with one more pick on like a running back who's 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there. And then I got to start making decisions, man. So
Yep.
I feel good about my team, dude. I don't feel so good about how close you are picking to me
Yeah.
because you and we have a lot of similar thought processes. You start your draft with Neighbors, Lamb, Wilson,
There it
which
is.
is right. So like the same thought process I have. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go old guys, you go young guys here, and then we'll do some hypothetical trades. Come on.
That was actually the thing that I noticed was that, I went Neighbors, Lamb, and Garrett Wilson, which felt amazing to get all that because I picked at the 109.
Right.
So Neighbors goes after Chase and Jefferson, which I think is fair. I think I have Neighbors almost, sort of. I'm flirting with him being my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty just because of the age and the awesomeness. And, I think he gives you at least as much of an opportunity for ceiling, even in this coming year, where it's an argument to make him wide receiver 1. I get him there at the 109. I turn around at the 2.04 and somehow or another CD Lamb is still there.
Crazy.
I was like, okay, so let's just do that. And we go wide receivers, first 3 picks. We're the only 2 that do that in the draft. The only other one who can maybe say they did that was Scott Connor, who went Jalen Hurts and then went Puka, Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze. But I do like our wide receivers, you and I, both in this draft. It's a PPR league, and I secured, 500 targets this year on my first 3 picks. It's like I feel really good about that.
And we could play to win now or play to win later when you do that
Exactly.
because we
Yeah.
have the targets, we have those guys. It's easy and it's so easy to when you start that way to if you want to play to win now, just draft older quarterbacks and draft older running backs and just try and
Yep.
win now. So
Exactly.
you can go either way with it, but you're
Yes.
gonna have those guys for a long time. And just on the
Yes.
Neighbors point, like to me, like if the one obviously we know what the issue is. It's a quarterback. If he had like if this year he comes out and at some point we see Jackson Dart and they have an amazing connection and that looks like the future, I think mid-season you just make that flip. But like that's the one thing holding it back is that like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are so locked in together
Yep.
for multiple years and it's too safe. It's too
Yeah.
safe. You could make the argument over Neighbors over
Jefferson.
Jefferson, who I took, but
Yeah.
I do believe in JJ McCarthy. So
Yeah.
that's
Me
kind of
too.
the difference maker. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I would take Neighbors over Chase. I mean,
Can't. Yeah.
if I'm really being honest, I wouldn't do that probably, but just sort of as a point of emphasis to Neighbors and how great he is, and how, someone could consider taking him as high as they want to and they won't get any pushback from me. I think that's fair enough. I think if you can trade Chase for Neighbors with a solid plus, I think it's worth it. Especially if you're not necessarily like a specifically win now team. So yeah, Chase just offers, especially if you have a stack with Burrow, it's a really unique sort of awesome stack. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not making the argument for Neighbors over Chase specifically, but he's in the God tier at this point. I
Yeah.
think it's really those three guys, and CD is pretty damn close. I think if you're gonna make a 4-man God tier, that's it. But I think it's a 3-man God tier, and CD is right there. Don't you agree?
I have CD in that tier. So I
Yeah,
have those four. Yeah. Just because I think that Dak is just going to hang on to the job. And if he's going to feed the guy 150 targets year in, year out, 180 targets, I mean, the guy had the third best PPR season of all time, behind only Cooper Cup and Jerry friggin' Rice. So it's
right.
like, like you can't take that away from him, and that possibility. Any given week, this guy is that good. So I do
So
have Lamb in that crew.
I have a question. It's a it's a small question because I don't think it necessarily matters. But you took Brian Thomas Jr. over Puka Nakua, and I was just thinking to myself, like, as a matter of fact, when I had Neighbors, I thought it was going to be like, you know, CD and Amon Ra was going to go. I literally had my choice of all those guys, but I thought CD and Amon Ra would be gone. I thought I might have my choice between Brian Thomas and Puka, and I was starting to talk myself into Puka just because of the targets, and he's still 24. The Neighbors Puka felt really good, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Did you consider Puka, or was it just Brian Thomas without any hesitation?
It's very close for me. Well, I've already thought about it in advance. So there was a time where I had to sit down and think about it. But in this particular draft, I already had that
Right.
sorted because to me, you look at I do like Liam Cohen. I like James Gladstone. I like what the James Gladstone, for those that don't know, is the GM for the Jaguars. He comes from the Les Snead tree. Where guys like Brad Holmes came from, the guy basically how you find a Cooper Cup or Puka Nakua or Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I just like what they're building over there. I also am a Trevor Lawrence guy, so I think Trevor Lawrence is going to, be one of those quarterbacks that turns it on as he gets into the late 20s, early 30s. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Tom Brady didn't have a 30 touchdown pass season until he was like 29.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield. There's a whole list of guys. Drew Brees that didn't really pop the way we think until they got to that age. I think that he's going to be great. I also just think that I'm a Devontae Adams guy. I know he has a limited amount of time here,
Yeah.
but this is a guy that's commanded 10 targets a year, 10 targets a game for the last like 5 straight years.
Yes.
Sean McVay is like obsessed with him. He like made the whole team sit down and watch clips. Did you see that? He made the whole
Mm-mm.
team. So when they brought him in, he actually when he recruited him, he already had this like giant highlight reel film, like highlight reel of him talking over clips of Devontae Adams, being like, "Here's what we're going to do with you. Here's how many targets you're going to get. Here's how you're going to be a focal point of this team." And that was part of the process to recruit him. And then when they got him in the building and they signed him, he made the whole team sit down and just showed
Nice.
clips of Devontae Adams, the whole team, and everybody was going, ooh, ah, and like whistling. And they show Matt Stafford's face, and he looks like, Jim from The Office. He's just like smiling at
Yes.
the camera. So like I do think that it could be a little bit split. And the problem you run into is that, super duper star quarterbacks at age 37, where Stafford is, can have monster seasons. Peyton Manning had the best quarterback season of all time at exactly 37.
Yeah.
Tom Brady threw 44 touchdown passes at 44 years old. You know what I mean? I
Right.
think it was 43 or 44 or
Whatever it
something like
was.
that.
Right. Yeah.
Right, Drew Brees. So like, but I just worry that like you're gonna have this like competition a little bit for the ending of Stafford's career here, where I think that Brian Thomas just runs pure. He's going to have a great role in Liam Cohen's offense. He's got Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Hunter could come along and be great, but we'll have to see that when it happens. So it's just we're splitting hairs at this level. But I really like Brian Thomas, and there's something to be said about a guy that has a first round pedigree and is that guy versus Puka Nakua, which just turned out to be really good. But I mean, there's a reason he fell to the fifth round. He's not built quite like everybody else. So we'll see.
You had said something about the Matt Stafford thing, which a couple things I just want to circle back on. Number one, especially myself and the crew over at the Dynasty Underground, me and Joe and Trav have been literally pounding the table for Devonte Adams in Dynasty at his current price because he's going to give you at least 1 year, maybe 1 to 3. I don't know exactly. Maybe he's got a contract for next year. The 2026. It could be that he's still very, very productive even in 2026. I think what like in best ball, he's going as in the like top 12 wide receivers. Like this is a wide receiver one, projected as a wide receiver one. Some people have him as like wide receiver 7 or 8 this year, and you're getting him at wide receiver 40 or something in Dynasty. I know that it's because of his age, but to be able to add that production, is such a gift in a Dynasty startup. And I can tell you right now that you're going to have to take him ahead of my toothpick turn
Right.
if you're going to want to get him, and you probably will. But I'm just saying, like, when it's his turn to be picked, I will be very, very interested in pushing the button for Devontae Adams in any Dynasty startup because of that. And the second thing that you said is interesting because I was going to bring this up, and it's not on the show sheet. We didn't talk about it, but it's you talked about Matt Stafford and him sort of, hey, at some point he's going to time out. And it's true. It's just father time, undefeated, gravity, father time, and taxes. What is it?
Death, taxes, and Matthew Stafford will eventually stop throwing the ball 1,000
I think
miles an
that's the
hour.
saying. You nailed it.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Yeah, it's an old saying.
my
But
grandfather used to say that.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there's a few of these guys. There's a few of these guys. It's Jared Goff. It's Matt Stafford. Aaron Rodgers currently holding a starting seat in the NFL. Like Russell Wilson
Mhm.
currently holding a starting seat in the NFL. I mean, there's a couple of aged players that are going to age out, and potentially some quarterbacks that will just not be good. Whether that's a Bryce Young that ends up getting replaced, or one of the rookies this year, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, etc. There's just going to be a little bit of a changing of the guard, I would say, in the next 2 years, basically. Give it a 2-year flip. I think in 2027, the start of 2027 is going to look so different in the quarterback landscape than currently 2025. And that's not something that you could have said when we had sort of, Big Ben, Breeze, everybody sort of in their primes type of thing. Like there was a point, there's certain points with the quarterbacks where it's like, dude, this feels like set it and forget it, at least for 2025 of the quarterbacks. Whereas here, a little bit different, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, like, this is where you need to, with a lot of guys, running back as well, because of how strong the 2017 draft was, right? Like
Yeah,
McCaffrey, Mixon, all those guys, Kamara, like because how strong that draft is. James Conner was in that draft. We're coming up on
same.
that,
Yep.
a huge change in the guard, right? So,
Yep.
like, you basically what you have to do now is decide. It's actually kind of a simple question:
Yep.
is this player a Hall of Famer or not? Because there are a lot of very good players in the NFL. And the difference is between who goes in the Hall of Fame or who doesn't is who does it for 12 years, 14 years. Who can be a Steve Smith, Larry Fitzgerald guy that not only plays at a high level, but compiles the stats that you need to get. Like even Calvin Johnson retired, like he's probably the earliest you can retire to still make the Hall of Fame, but he was still like 30, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys, and when you look at guys like Marvin Harrison Sr. and Randy Moss, like these guys were having their best seasons at age 30, 31, 32.
Right.
Believe it or not. Julian Edelman had an incredible season at that age. I mean, Jerry Rice doesn't count, but like
Doesn't count.
he had his best season ever at like 34. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He played till he was like 40, but like, so if you think Devontae Adams is a Hall of Famer, then you should expect him to have, like you said, 1 to 3 more high end years and
Exactly.
possibly the kind of trickle off years at the end where he's going out and he's getting 900, 1,000 yards or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
guys like Mike Evans, like if you sit back and say, I think he's a Hall of Fame caliber player. I mean, Matt Stafford, if you think that he is a Hall of Fame caliber player, then maybe he can truck on through 37, 38, 39, 40 years old, but,
Yeah.
I mean, and Stafford is a guy where I look at him in redraft and I'm like, in best ball, and he feels like a crazy value to me. We've been calling
Yes.
it the conglomerate discount, right? Which
Yeah.
is you look at the sum of the parts and they do not equal the price you're paying for the top. Look at what you pay for Joe Burrow in a redraft. It goes Jamar Chase first round, T Higgins third round, sometimes early fourth round for T Higgins, and then you have to pay like 6th round price for Joe Burrow, like pick 60. With the Rams, it goes Puka Nacua first round. It goes Devontae Adams third, fourth round, like T Higgins.
Yeah.
And then this guy goes pick 160, literally
Yeah.
100 picks
Yes.
after Joe Burrow. And I
It makes
know
no sense.
he doesn't have to be Joe Burrow. He just has to,
No.
in best ball, he just has to put together 3 or 4 or 5 games down the stretch when they're playing like the Panthers and the Cardinals and the Lions and like some of these matchups that could turn into shootouts. I mean, it's like I don't know. So for me,
And,
I
and
mean,
and I don't know. I'm not looking at the odds, but whatever the odds are for, Matt Stafford to lead the NFL in touchdown passes, I probably like the odds because I would actually put him towards the top of touchdown passes. Not, I know that rushing comes into play for for
sure,
fantasy football, of course, but I'm just
right.
saying, like in terms of straight up touchdown passes, it's very possible that he leads the NFL.
I bet the over on that because they have him set low because the last few years he's been low. So like
Yeah,
he went out with Cooper Cup. It was like just him and Cooper Cup in 2021 and he threw over 40, right?
right.
When I last checked with Vegas, they have him set at like 23, 24 because
Yeah,
they just been looking at the last couple of years.
yeah,
They don't realize that the back shoulder fade of Devontae Adams is coming to town here.
lethal. Yeah,
Yeah,
lethal.
like they're and here's the crazy question, Jackson, we're gonna run into for our weekly rankings early on. Let's say you're one of those teams that just has one good cornerback and you do shadow him or shade him,
Yeah,
depending on who you're playing. Okay, so let's say you're Patriots and you got Christian Gonzalez. Do you send him to cover Puka Nacua or do you send him to cover Devontae Adams?
I
Because
think I think the
being
one is going to be on Devontae, to be honest, because they're usually more outside, and Puka moves around. He's in motion. He's faking jet sweeps. He's cracking linebackers because he's a fucking lunatic. And first of all, Puka maybe my favorite player in the NFL right now. I mean, I know I have a list of favorites: Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, George Kittle. Like, there's
of
plenty of
course.
people that are my favorites, but Puka right now could just very well be my favorite player. I love that dude. So yeah, to your
Yeah.
point, I think Devontae gets that shade coverage, and as you point out, if it goes the other way, then you got to pick your poison, bro.
Exactly. So teams are going to have that problem, and I think that's going to rise tides for all boats. But it
Yes.
is it is crazy just a casual NFL fan or in general, you might just say, "Oh yeah, they'll cover Puka,"
Mm-mm.
or but
Yeah.
that might not be the case with the X there. So I think both those guys can come out and have 125, 130 easily plus targets, both of them.
Yes.
So it's one of those like false choices that people create. I'm
Yeah.
actually writing an article on fallacies where it's like they make you think, "Oh, you have to pick one or the other when you don't."
No.
And that's
No.
been one of the biggest discounts in Dynasty and everything. I mean, like, how many years did
Yes.
Tyler Lockett outperform his ADP after they grabbed DK Metcalf? It was like 5
Yes.
straight seasons. So,
Look, I think
that
this
was
is just
good.
the classic consolidated target share where both those guys are going to have like upwards of 25-30% of the pie. I think yeah.
Yeah,
I think like I don't think they're both going to get 150 targets. That's not like a prediction. I'm
no,
saying they both could get
they
150
could.
targets. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like this is not like that would be crazy to predict
We
such a stupid thing,
we've
but like
s
that's
we
in the you know.
Yeah, we've seen it. I mean, people. I think people underestimate, but like there's a couple things that people under and overestimate when it comes to targets. One of the first ones is they overestimate how many teams can actually support 3 wide receivers.
Right.
The people that think that like these teams are going to have come out and have 3 guys all get 100 targets, and 100 is kind of the bare minimum to be a
Yeah.
top 24 wide receiver. Like that doesn't happen. If you
No.
go to like Pro Football Focus and look at their stats, which takes away some of the throwaways, it hasn't happened in the last 2 years. It's only happened
Right.
once over the last 3 years, and it was the Vikings, and they traded for TJ Hawkinson, so it doesn't even count. Now
Right.
the other thing is that they underestimate is the number of teams that are going to have zero difference making pass catchers, which last year, the guy that led the Packers in targets got 76, right?
Yes.
It was Dontavian Wicks. Like the
Yep.
Patriots, yes, Hunter Henry got you through some dark days, but like that was their best pass catcher. There's a lot of teams that are going to have none, and there's a
Yep.
lot of teams that are going to have two. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans years, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Emmanuel Sanders, and Demarius Thomas, rest in peace. Devonta Smith, and AJ Brown. I mean, like there actually ends up being a lot of these teams that have exactly two, and there's always more teams that have zero than have three.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, and I think what people will miss on that is that targets are earned. That's
Mhm.
something that you want to say in your head and then think about what that means, not try and figure that out and then see if it's right. Say it in your head because it's right. Targets are earned, and so when you have, if Jamar Chase goes to any team, it doesn't matter who's already there. He's getting
Right.
150 targets. So that proves the point. It's not like, oh, there's available targets there, then just, it's not how it works. I am 100, I get them. You have to
You have
worry,
to figure out exactly. It trickles down. Like again, like if you put Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens and Jamar Chase on the team, I mean, there's a possibility prime all of them. There's a possibility Jamar Chase isn't getting the targets. You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's
Yes.
literally how it goes. So you've got to do the math on that, and you've got to place your bets. So along the way in these drafts and then with these decisions, you're going to run into these different bets that you're going to have to make, and it's going to lead you to correctly at times fade players that you think are good players, and also potentially bet on players that have really good opportunity that might not have,
Yeah.
that might not be super talented. That's why
Yeah.
Dynasty ends up being like the purest format because
Yeah.
you can bet on the players that you believe are good and wait and start them during the windows where they earn the opportunity. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah. I will say this too. If you're like, a lot of people say, well, you got to do projections. And I will say projections, if you're going to do projections, is one of the hardest things to ever do. However,
so hard.
one of the things that's not as hard to do is to basically just project targets. And obviously that's easier to do. You can just look at a team and a quarterback and project total pass attempts. How can you do that? Well, you can look at that quarterback's history because that quarterback has however many years they have of how many pass attempts they attempt either per game or per season, plus the team and the offensive coordinator. Meaning, what does that offensive coordinator's pass attempts look like? You can kind of just piece that together and come up with a number. Is it 500? Is it 700? Is it 625? You have to figure that out. And then throwaways, of course. But even if you don't want to
Of
do
course.
throwaways and you want to just give every player on the team some of those targets, what you find yourself doing is saying, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be 150, this guy's going to 150. And then you go to like the running backs, you're like, oh, I only have 12 targets left for the running backs. And
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
like, wait, that
Unless
doesn't
you're
work.
unless
That
you're
doesn't
LeGarrette
work.
Blunt. LeGarrette Blunt could get
But
12.
all the running backs are not going to get 12. You have to redo this.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're going to
So
get 50 to 100. That's what's going to happen because that's the low side and the higher side, of running backs. You have to
you
do
have to
this and
give
then
it
go,
to him.
oh, shit, yes.
So here's what I do that quick plug for the old fantasy alarm here is that in our draft guide and then I update it all season long is we don't actually go out and try and project a like straight up number or even a necessarily a range. What I do is I take this thing, I call it the target totem pole. It's got
Yes.
every team on there. And then what I do is to start it off right away is I rank each player based on who I think gets the most targets to the least. Right. So
Yes.
you go through and you put them in there, right?
There you
And
go.
then I have a color coding system of I say, okay, do I believe so historically speaking, the barrier to entry to be a wide receiver one is 125 targets. There
Yeah.
have been guys that have gotten in with fewer when they get a bunch of carries. There have been guys that get in on like field stretching and touchdowns. Like Nico Collins was a back end wide receiver one with 109 targets. For the most part, 125 is what we want. For
Yep.
wide receiver two, we need 100. Right. So what I do is I go through and I color code the guys. I say, okay, here's the order that I think they finish in. Uh, if a guy I think is a lock for 125 targets, barring injuries, blue on the chart. If I think
Yeah.
a lock is a guy a lock for 100, green. If I think maybe they get 100, orange, right, or yellow, and then like doubtful, orange, no chance, red,
Right.
and then you can look at it and say, okay, not only does it tell you kind of who you should make a focal point or not, but it also shows you on the chart, okay, what happens if this guy gets hurt and
Right.
125 targets go back into the pool? Who's the contingent upside play? That's how we hit on Johnny Smith. That's how we hit on a bunch of these guys in like these really consolidated
Yes.
offenses. Like right when Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill started getting hurt, and we're like, wait a second, Waddle's not going to be a 100 target player. Like he's not
Right.
even going to come close. So like that's how you start making those moves for anyone else. That's something that we do for Fantasy Alarm members. In the draft guide, you get a copy of it. And if you're a member, we update it every single week all year just to make sure people
That's
know,
smart.
right? Because it's
That
like trying to predict the exact numbers, especially once the season starts and it's week to week. That's hard. But we can sit here and say, hey, you know what? with this guy hurt, this player is now going to get 6 targets per game moving forward. That is a 100 target pace. That makes this player a highly likely top 24 wide receiver moving forward. Boom,
Yeah.
shakalaka.
Yes, and I think the mistake that some people make is just sort of assigning someone on the team to be the 125 target guy. Like you
Absolutely.
mentioned with the Packers, really, I think actually the guy who earned the most targets per game, I think, was Romeo Dubs, because they're
Easily.
all right around 70 something. There was Kraft, Reed, Dubs, and Wicks were all in the like 70 to 76. It was crazy. So he's looking it up. I can see it was super close
I'm pulling up the chart from last year. I already know that he got 5.3 targets per game and
per
Kraft got
game.
4.1 because I was already looking at it before.
Yes.
But I was
Which
just
was
pulling up
interesting.
last year's
You
target
wouldn't be able to
total.
people wouldn't know that. Like, if you just asked them, they would not say Dubs, and that's where
Right.
Dubs maybe a value right now. I mean, I know Golden muddies this water. I'm not even a Dubs fan, but I mean, just to see where the market has faded him to what the real numbers were last year is kind of interesting. I'm just not sure. You know, it's a murky spot, but to the point that, and you can respond after this, but to the point that on that team, people might have been thinking, oh, it's Reed's going to get 125. No, I think it's Wicks is going to get. The answer was nobody,
Nobody.
and it's not because they're not that guy, you know.
Right. So on my chart, what's funny, going into the season last year, I had 4 teams where every name on the chart was color coded in yellow or worse.
That
Those
was
were the
one.
Bills, which Khalil Shakir got 100 exactly. The Packers, which nobody got one. The Patriots, which Hunter Henry led with 97. The Titans, which Calvin Ridley did step up, but at the time, you got to remember they had DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Boyd and stuff.
Yeah, but
The other
Ridley
one,
sucked too, though. Anyway, so
yeah, you're right, exactly. The other one where it paid off big to lean into uncertainty is the Chargers because they had at the top of the chart was a rookie lad McConkey, but you can't just pencil him in for 100 targets right away,
no,
right? Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, Hayden Hurst, they're all in there, all uncertainty, and we sat here and we said, hey, you know what? Once these blue guys are off the table and the green guys, this is the number one yellow guy on the chart we're taking because he has the highest possibility of leading his team in targets, right?
yeah.
So,
I
and
probably
that
would have pushed back with you had we been doing that exercise together on Lad going in, just because of his college ability to earn targets. I'd been like, hey man, this is an open, and it would have led us to the right answer. I think that's the thing, is sometimes you look at also their college profile
right.
plus draft capital and kind of can put together, because targets are earned. One of the best tellers of who's going to get future targets is who's earned targets. This is what was Puka.
So
Puka,
would you have pushed back? Just sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt, but
Yeah.
would you have pushed back and said he should have been green on there?
I don't know exactly the process, but potentially, yeah. I
You
think
would have juiced him up. Okay.
100 targets felt like a very distinct possibility.
Well,
A
that's what
green
yellow is.
disagree.
Yellow is possible.
Possibility.
Green is a lock for
Okay.
100.
No.
Blue
Okay.
is a lock for 125. So on the sheet last year,
No.
there was only about
Yeah.
like probably 10 to 15 guys who were blue. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like
No, I wouldn't
Drake
have been.
London,
Yeah.
Chase, Lamb, Sutton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Jefferson, Neighbor. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was like guys that were pretty clearly going to get them.
Yeah. I
But
think you're under that description. I would have had him as a very high priority yellow then. Yep. Just like
That's
you did.
that's that's what we had him. We had him in the top column yellow, and
Yep.
luckily it worked out that way. We also had Quentin Johnston yellow because you just
Yeah.
didn't know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone had to get something. So
Somebody
might have
had to
been
get something. Yeah.
right. Might have been you.
With Harbaugh though, that is how we went and we said like, "Hey, you know what? Like there's a real possibility no one gets 100." That's why we didn't pencil anybody in for that because it's Harbaugh and Greg Roman and it's like, yeah, of course they could come out and have nobody get 100 targets. They did it. You know, they've historically been pretty close to that in the past. I mean, one year Willie Snead led Greg Roman's offense with 61% of the snaps.
So speaking of Harbaugh and Roman, we we like Quentin Johnson a little bit as a sort of a slot guy coming out, and then he plays outside and he has bad hands and he's not really good out there, but he did improve. And then they draft Trey Harris, and you're like, okay, here's an X. And then they bring in Mike Williams, and you're like, ooh, what a cock block Mike Williams is to all this stuff. I don't know exactly, like, even if he only gets 50 targets this year, it's like it's 50 in the way of other guys. Then he retires, and I think that's probably a good move for him, as he was dealing with health issues. God bless him. I mean, we would have loved to have seen prime Mike Williams healthy but we never really saw it all the way. We saw it in bits and pieces. But now that he's out of the way, what are your thoughts on Trey Harris? I really love Trey Harris. Here's a guy that actually, in the realm of college profiles, has a bit of a positive and negative to his profile. Some of it came a little late. He was a transfer from a smaller school, but he really performed at an incredible level in a quote unquote gimmicky offense. There's so many gives and takes to his profile that I'm willing to sort of see it either way. In the second round of rookie drafts, I was proud to push the button in the middle of the second round on Trey Harris a number of times. Should I be hopeful, optimistic, or is this maybe just he's still going to be maybe a 70 target guy that doesn't really quite get there, especially in the first couple of years? What are your thoughts?
So I'm for me, this is huge news because now we know who the 3 guys are. Even before, the floor was so much lower because he could have been the 4th guy, which
Exactly.
that happens to good players sometimes too.
Yes.
Like, you just end up having to wait your turn behind veterans who know the scheme and are trusted, and you got old school coaches here too, which you gotta
Yes.
factor in that, like, those dudes are sometimes like, your time will the veterans get
Right.
chow first, and you know what I mean? Everyone knows those coaches, so but, I mean, so the beauty here is this: there are kind of 2 really 2 major setups in terms of how you use 3 wide receivers, right? There are the teams that come out and use 2 outside wide receivers as their full-time guys with a pure slot player. Think about the Colts last year where or the last few years where Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are playing like 90% of the snaps. And
Yes.
Josh Downs is a pure slot guy, only plays slot, doesn't they only play like 9 snaps and 2 wide receiver sets, right? That's one setup. The other setup is the one that you get from like the Buccaneers, where the slot guy, whenever you have 3 guys out there, is Chris Godwin. But
Right.
he doesn't come off the field for 2 wide receiver sets. The flanker comes out, and then he
Yes.
goes out wide opposite Mike Evans, right?
Yep.
So we know that's going to be the Chargers because we know Lad
Right.
McConkey is a slot flanker, right?
That's
So
right.
he's going to be in the slot, and then he's going to be
Which
out
by
wide.
the way, real quick, that is the queen chess
Yes.
piece on the board. That is CeeDee Lamb. That is Amon-Ra St. Brown. That is
Yep.
all the very best places. As a matter of fact, that was even Jamar Chase last year, which
Yes.
they put him in the slot. So let's just say that Lad McConkey is in the captain's chair, but please continue.
Dan Campbell said it years and years ago when he was dude, I got goosebumps just now from the names you were just rattling
Yes,
off there. I'll
sir.
go Cooper Kupp all time.
Yes.
The when he was the all time #1 season, he ran the 4th most routes from the slot of any player in the league that year. So actually, CeeDee Lamb also 4th most routes from the slot. But Dan Campbell, way back in the day when they were using guys like Marquise Colston and at the time Michael Thomas that way, he came out and told reporters uh, when he was with the Saints, he goes, "We're going to find a way to get our best guy on your worst guy. That's what
Bingo.
we're going to do. Whether it's move Alvin Kamara out to the slot where it's going to be a running back, a linebacker on him, or whether it's put Michael Thomas in the slot, we're going to find our way to get our good guys on your bad guys, and we're going to beat you up and
Smart.
make you change your. You're going to have to change what you do to match what we do. So, and that's basically what these teams are doing with Chase, and that's what you do with McConkey, right? So that leaves one full-time guy because
Yes.
Harbaugh and Roman are going to be using exotic multi-tight end sets. They're going to
Fullbacks or
be.
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, they got 2 really good running backs now, so
Yep.
there's no reason not to come out and look at pull some weird like wing T stuff. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I mean, I absolutely would. The 49ers do it with the fullback. The Dolphins use it with the fullback. So I think one of those guys is going to be a part-time guy. I think Trey Harris is the better split end
Yes.
because with
For
Lad
sure.
McConkey,
Yeah.
yeah, and
For
what I
sure.
mean by that, folks, I know you got a lot of sharp listeners, but you have to have someone tethered to the line of scrimmage. They have to have their foot on the line. You need 7 guys on the line every play, and that guy's more susceptible to the jam, right?
Yes.
Lad McConkey, you don't want him getting beat up that way. You want him to be able to go in motion, move around. Quentin Johnston, I don't think you want it. I don't view him as a prototypical split end. I view him as more of a field stretching flanker, even despite his height and weight. Like, I don't think that he's going to end up being that guy. One of those 2 players has big upside to be a full-time player, you know? And
Yeah.
again, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to like, even if Trey Harris gets that role, there's a possibility that he just ends up being like Michael Wilson for the
Correct. That's exactly right.
Cardinals.
Yes. It
It's
doesn't
entirely
mean
possible.
anything. Right.
It doesn't mean anything. But Michael Wilson, if you do think about it, he gets a ton of snaps. He gets the minimum number of targets at least that a full-time player is going to get. He scores a couple touchdowns. So like, it does raise the floor for those
Yeah.
players. And then where they go with it, that's up to Justin Herbert and Trey Harris. But
Yeah,
very exciting times.
the floor for Trey Harris, provided he wasn't a complete and utter disgraceful bust, was, 30 or 40 targets, with a ceiling, who knows. But now I think that floor, unless he's, again, a complete and utter train wreck, is like 50 or 60 targets. Like, that's kind of like,
Yeah.
the floor. And I think we would want to pencil him into the 75 to 100. I think that is definitely the zone I would predict for sure. But he's a yellow player now too that also has the possibility to see the T Higgins treatment, where he's got between 100 and 120 in there, where Lad is 120 to 150 and he's in the 100 to 120 possible.
Yes.
I don't
Yep.
think it's
That's
probable that
exactly
they
it.
both see 100. I don't think so, but
I
it's
don't
possible.
I don't put so on my chart, by rule of thumb, you will never have 3 players on the same team that are all going to be green or blue.
Right, it's not
So
possible. No.
so what so yeah, exactly. It's mathematically it
It's
happens every
possible to
once in a
get
while.
there, but right, yes.
So since I've been doing this, I'll
Yeah.
just to put it in a way that people will understand. Since I've been doing this, it happens under 3.5% of the time. And I say 3.5 because that is the odds of correctly guessing a single number on a blackjack board. So
There you go.
like if anyone out there that has never played, not blackjack, sorry, roulette.
Roulette,
Anyone
yeah,
out there's not played roulette, ask your uncle if it's a good bet to just bet a single number on a
mhm,
roulette
no,
wheel, and it
yeah,
doesn't come up often, so you don't want to do that. For me, the chart over there, paywalled content we're getting into now, but
yeah,
it's Lad McConkey is blue,
yep,
and when I removed Mike Williams, it
yeah,
actually didn't move the spots that I had those players in, and it didn't change the colors. They're still
right,
both yellow because we don't
yes,
know. But
that's right,
the mentally the odds of what you're going to like the odds of success just increased because one of
yes,
those guys could have been a flat out odd man out. Whereas
yeah,
now we know who the 3 main characters are, and one of them could potentially play 90% of the snaps, and the other one plays like 65, 75. That's the next
yes.
game.
Because they have when they had Mike Williams, they had competition on the outside. Now their competition on the outside is slim, man. I mean, they have Brendan Rice, who was a 7th round pick. They have Jalen Rager, who's a bust. They have
Yeah.
Lambert Smith, who's interesting, but a 5th round pick this year, rookie. He'd have to be super special to elevate. Over a 1st and a 2nd round pick, and Quentin Johnston and Trey Harris, and Darius Davis, who's more of a special teams guy. It's just not really a player that's gonna take it from them. You wouldn't think.
Exactly, and if that happens, we're not even interested in those guys.
Correct.
The only way that that happens is if you get like a straight up N'Keal Harry level
Bust.
performance from Trey Harris, where you like basically say, "Man, we just got to play whoever we have, Demario Douglas, like
Yes,
Kendrick Bourne, right? Like
we
we
have
just have
to.
to play. We have to find anyone that can just play football." And what teams often do when that happens, which the Patriots do the same thing, is they just run 2 tight end sets with 2 wide receivers.
Yep.
And they
And
just say,
and
"Look,
and it would also take Jacoby Myers, who ended up being awesome. I mean, awesome. Awesome.
awesome, yeah,
He's one of the better NFL wide receivers. Like, he's a
good football
starter.
player."
He's great. And so it must have been interesting, especially for Bill and like that team to sort of be watching and be like, dude, this guy's fucking way better than that guy. Like, immediately
Sucks,
out the
yeah.
box, they knew it.
They give Juju the same contract, bro. Brutal.
So stupid.
Brutal to give Juju the exact same deal that Myers got, man. And the thing is,
Bro.
like, this is why it's so hard, like, it's so hard being an NFL player because we look at guys like, Jacoby Myers and like Tyler Boyd and Robert Woods, and we're like, yeah, they're whatever. But, like, these are some of the best football players in the world, and they're
Yes.
like multi-millionaires with generational wealth, and we just sit here and we're like, yeah, dude, whatever, not that good.
Yes.
It's like these guys are obviously some of the best in the entire world at what they do.
Yeah. Well,
So
as we say, there are levels to this shit.
there's levels to it. Yeah,
There's
there's no
levels to
question,
this shit,
dude. Yeah, exactly.
I
So there
mean,
are
yeah.
levels, but I mean,
There's
it's just
levels.
it is funny to think that way. It's like if you are the like 15th best quarterback in the world, people are like trying to replace you.
Dak
You know,
Prescott fucking sucks,
people
bro.
are like, how do we get this guy out of here? Look at the
Loser.
whole world. Yeah,
How about this? The 33rd best place kicker in the world is a complete bum.
unemployed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a complete
literally
bum.
at home. It's
Like, you
crazy, bro.
suck, bro. Oh, who's this fucking guy we have to have kick our field? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
and
Yeah.
you show up hungover to work, you lose your job as a
Yes.
kicker, you know what I mean? Like, you get fired on national TV too. Like, how many times is the coach, they're like, "What do you think about the kicker?" And the coach is just like, "No,
Dude, and if you watched
get him
any
out."
of these kickers or punters, like kickers and punters 30 through 100, like in the world, it's awe-inspiring how unbelievable these guys are. Like you would be like, that's impossible what they do. Yet,
Right.
no, not even close to
Bra
good enough.
Bran Brandon Aubrey had a job lined up in, like, medical tech sale like, tech medical sales. Like,
Yeah,
he, like, literally was, like, starting that job, and then, like, like, accepted it. And then, he had to call them up and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, so I'm actually not gonna be able to come in and work for you guys." And
turns out he's
then
good.
turns out he's, like, one of the best in the world, but he was so close to just going to it sounded like he actually had a pretty good job lined up. Not as good as the one he has now, but I mean, it's just crazy how the margins are so thin at some of these positions.
They for sure are. It'd be tough for me to get the tight end whisperer on my show. And I will tell you, everybody proudly calls you this. I do not proudly call you this because I want that mantle. I love me some tight ends. I'm just joking. You can have it, but I'm just saying, like, when we
You
get
know what?
together, I feel like I've got the chops to talk about this with you. This is one space where, you and I see eye to eye. I love your takes and I want to get into it and have some fun, but I thought I'd at least throw the first jab.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude, it's not even a jab to me because to me, and I know that like they call me that, but we called Howard Bender that before. And
Yeah.
to me, it's more like a brotherhood of tight
Yeah.
end whisperers because it's
Right.
not like other positions. We're
Right.
protecting the position. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to get rid of it, dude. They want to make their league easier, so that like I don't even know what the thought process on like let's just draft running backs and wide receivers. Maybe they're trying to make it easier for like the
Yeah.
accountant that's in their league or wherever at work, you know what I mean? That doesn't really care. But like we have a brotherhood here. Dan
Yeah.
Williamson in the brotherhood.
Yeah.
Jax, you're in the brotherhood. I mean,
No
like
doubt.
we the people that think the way we do and that realize that the position is a great place to create leverage. Those
Yes.
people are tight end whisperers. And if I listen, I always listen to what you're saying out there. You did get me to come around a little bit on the value. I mean, you and I used to go at this 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, where I said that blocking did not matter at all. You were
Yeah.
very heavily into blocking, and now I've come around to the point of like, okay, if a player isn't just a flat out wide receiver, better than the wide receivers, blocking does matter. You know what I
Uh,
mean? Like you
uh,
got to get on the field. So
Kyle Pitts, see Kyle Pitts, see Dalton Kincaid.
right,
These guys are not two-way players for the most part. Kincaid, Gesicki. Gesicki's a slot wide receiver,
he
and if
is.
you bring in a slot wide receiver that's better than Mike Gesicki, he doesn't play. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just the way it goes. I can't help you. Kyle Pitts are like, we're gonna play him at X. You know what he is? Not very good as an X wide receiver in the NFL. Sorry, he's covered, and
Right,
he's just not good enough. He's not fucking Randy Moss. So what is he like? He's not good enough. It's just that simple. Like,
right.
you
It's
know,
not fantasy football where you can just put up fewer stats, but then claim positional scarcity. That doesn't
right?
work in real football. Like he actually has to be
That's right.
better at that job. And the problem you run into with Zach Robinson is that he wants to use 3 wide receivers and an inline tight end. That's
Right.
why down the stretch, Charlie Warner actually played more snaps than him. Now, I'm
Yes.
not necessarily going to give up on Kyle Pitts because there
Me
are
neither.
schemes out there, right? Like
Yes.
he needs to go the Evan Engram route where he needs to leave and find somebody that is willing to use a big slot tight end. And you know what? There's not that many Doug Petersons or Chan Gailey's out there anymore. It's
That's right.
Sean Payton. Sean Payton, Evan Engram was able to find the next one with Sean Payton,
Yeah.
but like you got to find somebody who's willing to use that role. So
That's right.
yeah,
A-
it's very
and
specific.
you also touched on, I think you can speak to this better than even, well, certainly better than I can, but to the scheme fits, because that's the other thing too, is like, and that's why tight end is one of those positions where, okay, I feel like in the notes I put same song, different year, right? It's just the
Right.
same thing. We keep rinsing and repeating these tenets of tight end. And the thing with tight end is when we talked about the targets for wide receivers, it's very, I wouldn't say easy, but it's very straightforward. When we talk about that for tight ends, it's not straightforward at all. There's a few guys like that, maybe. Bowers is one of those guys you can sort of pencil in as a wide receiver because he is. Literally, we said this coming out. We did not say this about Pitts coming out, that analytically, Brock Bowers would have been the wide receiver 3 or something in that. Like we have the model, the UN score model. If he were a wide receiver, he would have been. I don't even think we put him through it, but based off of like back of the napkin math for the model, he would have been top 3 or 4, maybe even higher in our model as a wide receiver. That's crazy. That doesn't exist. He's an outlier. Trey McBride's pretty good, but he's not that outlier that Bowers is. I'm not saying that he's not going to outscore him or whatever, because again, it's not that simple. That's kind of the point. So to get to that, I think you start to have to look at some things further down the line, like blocking, like utilization, like scheme, all those things that come into play, and then you can tell a story at the tight end position. Harder to do, and that's why they want to make it more simple for people who don't see it that way.
Exactly. It's like people just don't, because it's difficult, but it's such a good place to create leverage. And I'll tell you, the biggest mistake that people make is they correctly, in my opinion, especially in redraft, they correctly go out and load up on running backs and wide receivers. But where they make the biggest mistake is they just coast into their playoffs without addressing the tight end position or without addressing the quarterback position. And then when you get to the playoffs, all the teams are very good, especially in Dynasty, which is such a top heavy format.
Right.
That's one of the biggest mistakes. And where you can easily illustrate it to people is picture somebody drafting 0 RB, and then they just never use any leverage. They don't draft a bunch of high-end sleepers. They don't use the waivers. They don't trade. They just go out and draft whoever and then just play the entire year out. Like, that team's not going to win. Even if they make the playoffs, they're going to lose. And so many teams, like that example is so obvious to people. But then when you point out that they've been doing that for years at tight end, and that's why they always come in 3rd or 4th, they're like, oh my God. Like, I just realized that, like, I didn't do anything to increase this one position, and that's why I keep losing. So, like, that's leverage for us. Obviously, in Dynasty, if you can get a guy, you pointed out, very rare to have a Travis Kelce where the team just says, we don't need to build anything else. That is, that even if you don't put Trey McBride where Brock Bowers is, and I don't, you have to put Trey McBride ahead of everybody else for the time being, because they signaled that to us. They had every opportunity. They had every opportunity to bring somebody in, and they didn't. It's Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Like, they just said, we don't need it because we got it. That is the biggest feather in your cap that you can get as a tight end. And I can give you an example of the opposite. Everybody sat around saying when Dallas Goedert gets his chance, he's going to be the guy. And when they traded Zach Ertz, they immediately went out, drafted Devonta Smith. They already grabbed AJ Brown. Like, they told us then and there that
this ain't
he's
happening.
not, that ain't the guy. He's not that guy. He's the 3rd guy on our team. So if you can ever get one of those guys in Dynasty where the team is fully committed to him, hold on to them for dear life, because like, it's so rare to have a Travis Kelce or even a Mark Andrews where they say, hey, we're not going to invest in this other position. Kittle, we're not going to invest in this position because we got one of our pass. We have our 2 pass catchers. We have this guy and then this tight end.
And even Kittle was held back by scheme and because there are certain spots where Kittle could have been even that much greater because he's so fucking awesome. Like, how long has he been the actual best tight end in the NFL? Like,
if you gave Chan Gailey George Kittle, he would have a all-time record-setting season. Because what Chan Gailey used to do is he would just take his best wide receiver, whoever it is, best pass catcher, and he would just put him in the slot. Tony Gonzalez one year ran the 2nd most slot routes for Chan Gailey behind only Hines Ward. That's a lot of slot routes. With the Jets, it didn't look the same because the player he used was Eric Decker. Right. With the Bills, he used David Nelson. And then with the Dolphins, finally, he used Mike Gesicki. And Mike Gesicki went from being a nobody to being a guy that finished like tight end 6. Like, if you give Chan Gailey George Kittle, he'd be playing pure slot, running people over in the run game from that spot, but also getting 140 targets with 4.5 speed where he can throw people out of the club. I mean, it's kind of sad we never got to see that. He's so great in his current role, but just 1 year, I would love for them to just flip Travis Kelce and Kittle and just let him play the Just let Kittle hang out.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
dude. If he were in the Travis Kelce role, because he also
unbelievable.
can throw people out the club, as you like to say.
Yes.
This could be a little bit of the year. Again, health always is an issue with Kittle. Why? Because he plays such a violent, version of the sport, because he's the best, well, the best receiving back. I mean, the best receiving tight end at blocking. Like, there
Yes.
may be some bigger, like, what's his name? Washington for Pittsburgh or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, well, we've always
Just
had
talking
that.
about
It's like,
yeah.
right. It's like for years, it was like, okay, well, you can't say he's the best tight end because like Mercedes Lewis
Yeah,
is,
it's like, well,
you know what
come
I
on.
mean? But it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he is
Yeah.
he's the best blocking tight end we care about,
That's right. And the greatest of all time, of course, is Gronk.
Yes. Unbelievable. And
There's no discussion, right?
yeah, those two are very unique in that, like, they're unicorns in my model. And it's why some years I was kind of fading Kittle and I gave up on that because of he breaks the models. But like, there's only been 3 guys in the last 20 years to block on 15% of their pass plays or more and finish as a top 5 tight end. One was Kittle, one was Gronk in a year where he scored 10 touchdowns in 10 games and got hurt. The other was, dude, and you would never guess this, but I would love to make one stab at it.
Um,
It was 2013.
okay. And give me the stat one more time.
Blocked on 15% or more of the pass plays, but still finished top 5. It's a
2013. Oh my God.
throwback. It's not a super popular name. It's not because he was good. It was because it was the team was the situation. I'll give you that hint.
Oh boy, like a Gary Barnage or something like that.
Very right in that same neighborhood, man.
Ooh, I'm close,
Right,
dude.
you're so very close. You're very similar type of guy that just
Oh,
popped for like 2 years and then was gone.
wait, 13 too. Was he a Packer?
Nope. He
Give it to me.
was Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes. So Julius Thomas.
Julius, that's right. Oh,
Orange
that's right.
Julius. Yeah, he
Orange
came
Julius.
out. He caught like that was Adam Gase. He blocked on like almost 20% of his pass plays, but he caught like 13 touchdowns or
Mm.
something. So rare. That never happens. But if you're just like complete freak like Gronk or Kittle, then it can't happen.
And also they just don't ever take them out because they're so good at it.
Never come
That's
out.
why.
Yep.
That's the whole reason that blocking matters. It's not that you want your tight end blocking on 10 to 20% of pass plays. It's that you want them in on 100% of pass plays.
Right. And the difference with these guys and what makes Kittle so unique is that you got it. This is where the ancillary factors come in. Like you talked about it before. Once you get out of the top 2 guys, right? Guys that are top 2 on their team, that's the first thing. And pass blocking is actually the second most predictive because there's
Yeah.
only been 3. So like once you find guys that aren't pass blockers, like aren't blocking tight ends and are our top 2 targets on their team, after that we have to find those ancillary items and Kittle checks every box there. Namely, things like speed and yak and average depth of target, right? And success versus man to man, which translates
Yeah.
to the red zone, right? Like this guy has 18 plays in his career of 40 plus yards. He's the only tight end. Yeah, that's just like big.
Think about it this way too, Andrew. Like this is you're messing with my mind, but like so good. Like you think about like a decoy. If you're an X, is you run deep or whatever, take a safety or something. A decoy from the tight end is there's someone assigned to be covering you, and then you stay in and block. You basically are occupying two players because you're pass blocking an edge effectively, which is hard to do. So only so many guys can be trusted to even do that. Gronk, Kittle. Okay, yeah, you can do that. And the guy that's covering you is like, wait, what's he doing? So you're literally covering 2 players,
Yes.
creating a mismatch. So there it is again. I never thought of this ever before in my life until you just mentioned it. But
Right.
that's another way that these tight ends create value on the field, which is why they have to be on the field, which is why you can't take them off the field, which is why they're the best tight ends in the
Right.
league. This is so
And
cool.
when they fake block and just olay you and set up the screens, and that's how he's got these 18 plus. So he's got 18 plays of 40 plus yards. So does Kelsey's tied with him. No one else has more than 9. The next highest is actually Jonnu Smith.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's like, and Jonnu Smith in a very similar scheme just popped off last year. Now
Yes.
the other thing that Kittle has going for him that's huge, and this is something that I'm making an emphasis on. This was added to the tight end Bible. And this is a free article. If you just type what makes an elite, I think if you just type what makes an elite tight end, it just comes right up. But if you type in what makes an elite tight end fantasy alarm, it'll definitely come up. I
Yeah.
take all this info when I share it for free. And then every year, my personal picks for this year with a full write up are in the fantasy alarm draft guide. But I added a new category last year, which was highly consolidated offenses, right?
Yes.
And so to your point there, if you have an inline tight end like that that can do everything,
Yes.
then the other and they play every snap. The other players that come into the game do not take him out of the game. They take someone else out of the game. And it's
Yes.
not going to be a lineman. It's not going to be a quarterback.
Right.
It's not going to be most of the time it's not going to be the running back. So when these fullbacks come in and when Luke Farrell comes in, Luke Farrell, they just paid a gazillion guaranteed dollars to be their blocking tight end. When these guys come in, it's the wide receiver 3 that comes out. And
Bingo.
sometimes even the wide receiver 2 that comes out.
Bingo.
So that's how you see teams like the 49ers with Juszczyk and the Dolphins with Engold, these tight ends getting a big target share because they don't have a wide receiver 3. And you're going to watch this year, the teams I'm keeping an eye on, Josh McDaniel definitely already is bringing the fullback to town. They drafted this kid, Brock Lampy, that's coming in. I don't know if it's Lamp or Lampy. I'm praying it's Lamp because if
Right.
this guy's name is Brock Lamp,
Yeah.
that's incredible. But
Yeah.
Brock Lampy's still fine too. But
Yeah.
like Brock Lamp is a great tight end name. And the Seahawks got a great tight end name too. They drafted this guy, 270 pounds. He's got a mullet. His name's Robbie Oots.
There we go.
Oots. So
Ooh. Yeah.
I'm telling you, these teams that use the fullback and use the blocking tight ends, Austin Hooper and AJ Barner, like that's gonna really elevate the tight end, which brings me to the news of the week, man.
Yes,
Noah
sir.
Fant getting released.
Yeah.
Elijah Arroyo with the wheels up and out. Were you already an Arroyo guy? I feel like you would have been at
Let's
least
go
in the
there.
neighborhood.
Let's go there
Okay.
because this is exactly it. I am an Arroyo guy, and I will tell you. Here's the question that I have. So first of all, let's just stay with Arroyo for a second because I'm going to switch to something that I want to ask you. But I think Arroyo might have some of those blocking issues. I don't know. I didn't scout him as a blocker. It's not like I went in and but I do understand that he's a bit more of a seam stretcher. So I
Yes.
don't know exactly how much he's going to be able to be a three-way tight end, so to speak, a full-time, do it all type player. But as to your point, I don't think he needs to be. I think he's going to be playing a little bit more, slot type stuff and second tight end, move tight end, as opposed to Barner's going to be the anchor who might catch some touchdowns. Actually, I think Barner and Arroyo both could be useful, especially on a team that doesn't really have a wide
I
receiver
knew you
three.
were gonna like Barner. This is where we
Yeah.
always you and this is where we still diverge because I've come around, but you love
I don't
these.
love Barner. Don't
I know
overstate
you
it.
don't love him.
No,
I know, but you love the guys that can block and
I
potentially
just
take
want
the
him on the
entire
field.
role.
Like here's the thing: when you're scheming an offense and you're like, okay, Arroyo, what does he do? He's like, well, two tight ends, both on the line, two wides off the line. Nope, not that's not the guy. We can't do that because then they look at him like we're going
I'll
to
tell
shove
you
you to the ground. So he has to be off the line a little bit more. I mean, again, unless he shows himself as a potential blocker. In other words, if I know you're throwing the football. I don't have to have a
what
linebacker anywhere near Royal. I can just have a corner, right?
I'll
Okay.
tell you. So yes, you're right, but I'll tell you the way out of it is this: is that we immediately want to think of when we think fullback, we want to think 49ers, and that makes us think Kittle, right? What we should be thinking is Dolphins, where when you look at what they've been doing with guys like Durham Smythe, right?
Yeah.
Which it just so happens, I mean, I don't know, maybe coincidence that if you go to a little website like playerprofiler.com, the best comparable player for AJ Barner happens to be Durham Smythe. I mean,
Yep.
it's just kind of matches up like that. They both run like 4.8,
Yep.
slowish 40s.
Yep.
Like what they do is they use their inline tight end that way, and then they use their pass catching tight end in a lot more of a wide receiverish role. Where
Yes.
when you look at Jonnu Smith, it's kind of surprising to see that he only played like 45% of his snaps from the slot until you realize that he played over 20% of his snaps all the way wide at its
Wide.
split end.
Yep.
So he actually played like 70% of his snaps as a wide receiver, but it was a lot more out wide. And when you go in and look at what they say about this kid Arroyo, the GM already came out and was like, "Hey, we think
We'll
he can
play him
play
at
a little
X.
bit of split end." Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You saw those quotes,
Yeah.
right? So that's where those come into play for him. It has me excited. I actually had Arroyo as my tight end 4 this year, but I with the news for my rookie tight end 4, I got to move him ahead of Terrence Ferguson. I still love Terrence Ferguson,
Yeah.
but I think that he's just blocked for now with the top 2 targets there. It's like again, you're splitting hairs with these 3 guys. And Mason Taylor probably has the best opportunity of all of them,
Yeah.
but he's such a risky player because if Mason Taylor doesn't run away with that job, like Mason Taylor has a golden opportunity to prove that he can be a top 2 target on this team.
Yeah.
If you draft Mason Taylor, you need them to walk out of this season and say, "We have Garrett Wilson,
We have
we
Mason
have
Taylor.
Brees Hall,
Yeah.
we have Mason Taylor,"
Yeah.
right? And like
Yeah.
that's it. And then, but the problem is, if he doesn't pop, then next year they might come out and draft their Devonta Smith.
Yep.
Devontae Smith, like what happened with Goddard and AJ Brown, and now you're cooked for the next. I mean, Devontae Smith was a first round pick, so you're cooked for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like Mason Taylor is a very interesting redraft pick. Boy, am I terrified in Dynasty. That's exactly the kind of player where, like, if he doesn't pop this year, quietly trade him to
Yes.
somebody and just say, "Oh, shucks," and then just watch them draft or sign a wide receiver, and then you'll be like, "Okay, good."
I unfortunately have 0 shares and very little cares of Mason Taylor out of 22 Dynasty leagues. Here's how I played it, and I'm going to talk to you about this because this is interesting. So I have a couple of Lovelands and a couple of Tyler Warrens, and I
Good.
never drafted them a single time in the first round. I
I think that's the way
only
to play it.
I only took them when they were in the second round. That's it. Period. End of story. I never felt compelled to take them in the first round. I didn't even think about taking them in the first round. If I was on the clock and they were the sort of the next valued pick, I would trade the pick and move back. I wanted to not pick them in the first round, and I did not. My thought process was that's way too rich for a similar. It's a better bet. I'm betting on Loveland and Warren over the other guys. Yes, but at a similar bet to the other guys, which is
Mhm.
Mason Taylor, Arroyo, Ferguson, and Fannin. I think those 4 guys, if I'm betting and I get to take them in the third round versus taking Loveland and or Warren in the first round, I'd rather take those other guys. I'd rather bet on those 4 at cost. Again,
Yeah.
not to say that I think those 4 will be better than those 2. That's not necessarily my take. My take is they're a lot closer together than the
Yes.
value.
It's a value-based game. It's similar. I had the 2 guys up top, but not ranked super high in general. And then I had 3 guys in a tier, which was Ferguson, Arroyo, Taylor. Then I had Fannin and Gadsden in a tier of their own as like pure pass catching guys that I did like. I know some people don't like Gadsden. I do like. All right. So
I
anyone
like
out there
Gadsden
is
a lot.
contested catches and like he's a converted wide receiver.
Yeah.
And he went to the scheme. That was the thing, is he went to a scheme where I watched Greg Roman turn out a top 5 season, 1 year, a top 5 overall season ever for a tight end for Mark Andrews. But
Right.
1 year he was top 5 in fantasy when he only played 41% of the snaps.
Yeah.
And Nick Boyle played 70, 2019. Like he
Yeah.
knows how to use a big slot tight end, even if it's not a full-time player, and maximize that role. Not to
Yeah.
mention their tight end coach, Andy Bischoff, came out and said that he reminds him of Darren Waller, who
Yeah.
when they converted Waller from a wide receiver into a tight end with the Ravens. So definitely an exciting name, but still not in that tier. You gotta
Yeah.
tier them out. But I'm fully with you that you can take these bets cheaper with similar upside and still have access to guys that could pay off in a big way. And I think one thing that people need to realize is that, like, we've gotten to the stage where positional scarcity, I think, is overvalued to some degree.
Right.
It's overvalued the position because, like, yes, Brock Bowers did score more than other guys. Same with Sam Laporta, but the difference between the tight end 1 and the tight end 10 was like 5 points per game. If you're in a league where it has 1 tight end spot, 5 points per game is good. But if you're in a league that has 3 wide receiver spots and a flex, go look and see how many points Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and these guys are scoring on average than the wide receiver 36 or the wide receiver 40. We're talking 10 points a game, 10 points a
Yeah.
week. Like, do you actually get a better positional scarcity by having elite wide receivers and running backs?
Yeah.
Like, the best ever tight end season in PPR is 330 points. Do you know who by?
I don't, although I would probably guess not Tony Gonzalez. No. Is it Gronk?
It's Rob
Yeah.
Gronkowski,
It was
18
Gronk,
touchdowns.
the 18 touchdown. Yeah.
Yes, 18 touchdowns. That season is the best ever, 330 PPR points. And that's the season's a big reason we talk top 2 target on the team, because Wes
Yeah.
Welker actually got 173 targets that year. So
Exactly. Yeah.
we did all right. But 330 PPR points. As you know, Guys like Christian McCaffrey, guys like CeeDee Lamb, guys like Jamar Chase, guys like Cooper Kupp, 400 points.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you get the positional scarcity at tight end, you still have to have the other positions. You can't just show up with 330 points and play a guy that has 400 and say, "Oh well, positional scarcity says that my points are worth more." They're not. Only tight end premium actually makes them worth more. So you still got to hit on the big players. For me, I'd rather take a shot on the big dogs like you at wide receiver and running back, and then even if you know Elijah Royal ends up being a little worse than Colston Loveland, well, I got him in the 3rd round. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Or it's like I got the other guys, and I got a guy that's going to be just fine for me. And you
But
know
I
what?
think the upside
Could
bets
still
are
win.
as good on a guy like Arroyo or certainly Ferguson, especially right now with his draft capital. Fannin, Lord knows
Any
I
one
have
of
a
those
soft
guys, any one of
Lord
those
knows
guys
I have a
could be the
soft
best.
spot for Fannin.
Of course, yeah, he's awesome. He was awesome.
Here's the thing. He's basically what's the lower level Brock Bowers. I mean, he did dominate. He just did it at a different level. He's not Brock Bowers. I'm not saying
Right,
that,
of
but I mean,
course.
but he did dominate in a way that was very, very unique. Of course, I think the thing that hurt him the most is two things: small school, and he runs like a duck. I think those two things are
He
probably his biggest
truly does.
issues. But his duck ass is mossing people and throwing dudes to the he's throwing people out of the club. Like he's
Right.
really amazing. Breaking tackles, like run after catch. Like he's a really like if you're just like who's a good football player, I'd be like, well, I know he's a good football player.
Right.
Now, whether or not he can play at this level and be able to again block at this level determines whether or not he's on the field more than a guy like Mike Gesicki. Because I mean, you got to figure he's at least a Gesicki type, right?
Right. Well, and again, my comp for him was like a guy like Jatavian Sanders, where you watch Jatavian Sanders and he was doing it at Texas, but like this
Yeah.
guy has just a nose for making plays when he gets the ball, and he
Yep.
flashed that a little bit last year
He
too.
did.
Like, yeah, like these guys have upside with, and a guy like Fannin, you're willing to take that bet on him because there is the unknown that comes with playing in that conference, right? It's like,
Right.
yes, he could be a big fish in a small pond. But sometimes you take that big fish out of the small pond and put him in the big pond, and he's just as big as the other fish.
Yeah. And
Sometimes you
also
take
when he
that.
played against really big fish, he did fuck those fish up in
Yeah, he did.
college. I mean, he did. He played what is it, Penn State? He played all these good
Penn State,
yeah,
Penn State, they were missing their one of their safeties, or one of their safeties started the
sure.
game like with like a
A
torn
backup
ACL.
Penn State safety is supposedly better
Still
than these,
better, right?
right? I
Exactly.
mean,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
we
you're
can
right
make
though.
excuses,
Right.
but he
So
did
it's
it
like
every week. So maybe everybody had their backup safety. And I mean, somehow, some way, he was beating people all year and the year
well,
before.
we see it all the time. Like both sides happen all the time. Like one time a guy will come out with all the records and he'll
Yeah,
be Corey Davis.
that's
And then
right.
another time a guy will come out with all the records and he'll be LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah.
So
I think
like
at tight end it's different, right? Because I'm actually of the opinion that it almost means very little. It's just, is the guy athletic, right? And can he
Right.
make big plays? Which is part of the reason I'm a little bit hesitant with Mason Taylor. If I look at like my research on tight ends, um, Mason Taylor is a scary bet
profile
to
is
make. Yeah.
brutal,
It's
bro.
awful. It's
You
awful.
are you are betting. So the bet that what you need to happen is what happened with what happened with a good example is Rashi Rice. Where Rashi Rice in college, his usage was like terrible. They like split him out wide. He only played on one side of the field. He was like running deep routes. And then the Chiefs correctly assessed this player, brought him in, changed his usage entirely, made him a slot, made it, throwing him like screens, all this stuff. With Mason Taylor, LSU, the usage of him was awful, right? It was like 70% inline snaps. He blocked on 16.7% of his pass plays. I mean, like that right there, we just talked about how that is like an absolute nightmare red flag, right? Like this guy was an inline blocking tight end that would like sneak out on play action. Didn't do much versus man to man. Like if the Jets drafted him because their offensive line sucks and they want to have an extra offensive lineman, then that would be a nightmare. And people will tell me, "Oh, well, they drafted him so early." You know who else got picked at like the same spot? Drew Sample,
Yeah.
right? Like teams, we look at it and we're like, "Oh, blocking tight end, boo."
Yeah.
Teams look at this and they say, "Blocking tight end, that we need that so badly right now."
Yes.
Like that's the only way we can fix what's going on here. And look at the money that Luke Farrell got. Look at the money
Yeah.
that Josh Oliver is rich, bro. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like that dude has generational wealth. You know, that dude could buy a franchise of car washes today, and his family would never have to work again. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Do it. Let's go.
Tyler Croft, Marcedes Lewis, Michael
Right.
Pruitt, like these guys.
Yes.
The NFL values those players. So if you don't think that like there's a world where Mason Taylor's the next Darnell Washington, and coaches love those guys. They
Yeah.
love those guys.
Well, look, if you just take like, and I'm just going to do it here. I don't know how often I've done it on this show, but if you take, all right, I'm going to go through it. Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, Harold Fannin, Elijah Royo, Gunnar Helm, Mason Taylor, Gadsden, Luke Lachey, Oscar Delp, and Terrence Ferguson. I just have them in there because this is the data set. I know Oscar Delp's out, but even throwing those guys in, but Terrence Ferguson, all those guys, and a couple others, just in that data set, yards per route run, best season, Mason Taylor's worst in that list.
Dude, he's worse on my list of like 40 guys. Dude.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, just to compare him, he's awful. Yards per route run career, worst on that list. Yards per team pass attempt, only Oscar Delp was worse because he's terrible. Yak, even Yak, it's like it's not good. It was 5.4 Yak.
Right.
It's fine, but it's not like special. The other thing I even like to look at, let me see if I have it here real quick. I like to look at like just I don't have it right here, but like even just yards per reception, because I think sometimes you see like yards per reception. It's like, did you make big plays? That's part of my anatomy. It's like, did you make big plays? And he didn't really make big plays. No. All the stuff that you sort of look at, not great for him. Analytically, he just didn't make big plays, wasn't really targeted. I'm just nervous that you're right, that he's a little bit more Drew Sample than he is, even Dallas Goedert. I don't know. And look, he's got the bloodlines. There are some times, people will talk about Kittle and be like, well, look at Kittle in college. Dude, you look at Kittle in college, Kittle had, his yards per route run was like 3.12 in his best season. Yet, granted, it was 300 yards, but dude didn't run any, like they didn't pass, at all. They just ran every play. Like, so his underlying stats were amazing, even though he only had like 300 yards receiving,
And if you watch Kittle's highlights, like that, this is where I encourage people. I'm like, don't worry about like trying to figure out technique, and don't worry about like, where they're putting their hands, or where they're like, the coaches can actually correct a lot of that stuff. So you don't know what can be correct and what can't be. What you should look for as a somebody who's taking it seriously enough to at least like watch the tape, watch to see if this guy is making difference making plays, right?
Yes.
Contested catches. Is he winning in man-to-man situations? Is he getting extra yards when there's 3 guys on him? Is he putting in the work? Is he diving for the pylon? Watch George Kittle's college highlights, and this dude is like a cartoon character out there doing crazy things. And then go watch like Luke Schoonmaker, who is a guy that literally was just I couldn't find a catch versus man-to-man. He had one good catch that was like a one-handed catch on like just a regular route, but like it's just a lot of zone and play action and just freebies, Like look for true playmakers. Looking for Sam Laporta breaking, 9 tackles on one play. Because like that's how they found Kittle. That's how the 49ers found Kittle. They were scouting CJ Beathard, who they took in the 3rd round, and then they took his teammate and college roommate in the 5th round, and that happened to be George Kittle. So like look, like when you watch these guys, watch Tyler Warren. That's why Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland have to go before the other guys. Because you watch.
If you want to talk about missed tackles forced per reception for their career, Brock Bowers 25%, Sam Laporta 23%, George Kittle 21%, Mason Taylor 10%. So it's like it's just not, he's not making those plays. That's per reception. Right. It's not like, you can take it all out and say, look, you can make anybody miss at any time. He wasn't.
The NFL is the permanent all-star game of the college, right? So like even when you're LSU, like, and again, that you have to make that excuse that it's LSU, because this team, you think about that, they were giving him the ball. He wasn't breaking tackles versus guys that didn't come to the league. When they were going to call pass plays and they're saying, okay, we need one here, you stay in and block. Like 1/6 of the time they said, you stay in, and then these guys are going to go and catch the ball. Like at the college level, that's a nightmare.
By the way,
that's a nightmare.
Missed tackles forced per reception, Harold Fannin, 29%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
Terrence
is.
Ferguson, 22%. They were the two best in this class. So
Mhm.
not that doesn't mean everything. I'm just saying like that there's some of that underlying stuff where you look at it and go, maybe this guy can do this at the next level because he was able to do it consistently at the college
And,
level.
and that's why Ferg ranks so high. One other thing that
Yes.
I factor in, and I know that people hate this, they hate this, but they're willing to do the opposite, which is think about who's drafting these players in terms of the actual decision makers. Because for years, we've all been willing to say, whoever Bill Belichick drafts as a wide receiver, you move him down because
Right.
we don't trust the talent evaluation, right? Right? We say that we would do that,
Yeah.
but we never do it on the other side. I'm at the stage where I look at Les Snead and anyone from that tree. Les Snead, and then Brad Holmes, who went to the Lions after being the head scout for Les Snead and is the back-to-back executive of the year, and now James Gladstone. It's like these guys are consistently finding Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Amon-Ra St. Brown in round
Terrence
3.
Ferguson.
And they drafted Terrence Ferguson got drafted earlier than all those guys. He's second
They
round
did
pick.
the thing. They did the thing too. The same thing they did when they drafted Puka, they did when they drafted Terrence Ferguson. They were like, dude, do you
Yes,
know this fucking guy?
right.
They were
Because
super
yeah, because they were probably laughing when
yeah.
Woody Johnson and the Jets
Took me
looked at Mason Taylor and they said, "Well, his dad is Jason Taylor and his uncle is Zach Thomas, so like we'll have to. He's our guy." Like that is probably literally what they had written down on the sheet. So like
probably.
it's just they're using Madden ratings and whatever. It's like at a certain point,
Yes.
like I'm not saying it's anything, but it's just another data point of like if Les Snead and these guys like these players, they have a process that I've read a bit about it. They don't even do top 30 visits because they say we have enough guys that go to every one of these schools and talk to these people in person all year long during the season, talk to their friends, talk to their family, their coaches. He's like, why would I do a top 30 1 hour visit? That's just going to be,
Waste of time. Right.
waste of time, right? It's like if you're trying to buy like a new backpack, what's going to be better if you do like 10 hours of research online and then just walk into a store and just look at a bag for like 5 minutes, like that's how they kind of treat like
Yeah.
their decision making process. It's like it doesn't make sense. It's not going to change my mind in an
Yeah.
hour,
Right.
So I love those. I just love that system, and it has me in on those teams when people are grabbing those execs. I think they know what they're doing.
Well, you made me feel a little bit better about not having you didn't push back too much on this Mason Taylor thing. It doesn't sound like I mean,
Here's here and
awesome.
this. You want to circle back to the start of the show
Yeah.
when I said sometimes you got to lean into opportunity, draft guys you don't like. In redraft, in best ball, I
Yes.
feel like you
Mason
got to
Taylor.
have a little Mason Taylor. You got to have a
Totally.
little just because the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this game we play. That's why it's the Dino game theory is the
That's
best
right.
username of all time because there's so much. The game theory is like you got to work in circles and then make the best bet. So in redraft, Terrence Ferguson's kind of buried and Mason Taylor's wide open, but I would much rather have Terrence Ferguson in Dynasty.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When we look at redraft, only because I think in some ways redraft sometimes tells us a little bit of the story in Dynasty, you know, I'll give you, the 2 minutes to kind of give you your yin yang theory, basically, or, people have heard it here before. You don't have to start from the beginning, but basically, drafting security and then drafting, upside, you know, I will say that even in redraft, now best ball is different because there's 22, or whatever, 20, 18 to 22 rounds, depending on which platform you play. And whereas like in a redraft, you can be playing like start 10 5-man bench. You have 15
Right.
players. You're not drafting deep tight ends. You're just paying attention to them on the waiver wire. So, the format matters, but talk a little bit about, the idea of what you look for at the tight end position in drafts real quick.
Yeah, and you can do that in pretty much any format, the yin yang, because like if you're in an 8 or 10 man league, it just moves the needle to where the safe guys like that you draft to start, like the safe guys are like Evan Engram.
Right.
And then you circle back with like your last pick or just watch the waiver wire for the highest risk, highest reward guy. That's basically what we're doing is we're drafting someone that we can trust to start for us for the first few weeks. And then we're drafting the highest risk, highest reward guy on the bench. And then we're going to cycle out the guy on the bench until we hit. Or sometimes even, the yin tight end will hit if he ends up being a top 2 target or if guys get hurt. That's why with the yin tight ends I draft, I always go for somebody that I think does have a little path to upside. Like this
Yeah.
year, more than ever, it's so easy to run it in a 10 or 12 team league because you just wait and you take one of Hunter Henry or Tucker Craft
Yeah.
because
Yep.
they've got a good floor and they also have a glimmer of, hey, maybe this guy could be the top 2 target on the team. Like
Yes.
Tucker Craft, it's possible. Like last year, 4.1 targets per game, not great, but like he showed that he's just as good, if not better, than the rest of these guys with the ball in his hands, and it's
Bingo.
possible. But at the very least, you can start him for your first 5 weeks and not lose.
Yeah,
The reason,
he's got the George Kittle out. He's not George Kittle, but he's got that out where he could just make big plays with the ball. You know, it's like if you drafted Drew Sample, how many targets would he need to get before he actually paid off? It's like
exactly,
20. You know what I mean? In
yeah,
one game, you know, I'd be like, well, he got 60 yards on 20 targets. So, you know, that's good.
right. That's why
Right,
you avoid guys that run a 4.8 or slower because we haven't
right.
had a guy finish top 5 that runs a 4.8 or slower since Heath Miller in 2012. So like,
Bingo.
sorry, guys like Jake Ferguson, and you're gonna hate me for this, but Isaiah Likely,
Yeah,
not fast. But I mean, if I was gonna pick someone to do it without being super fast, I would pick Likely, but still, like
yeah,
try and avoid those guys a little bit. But like so you get somebody safe, you put them in there. And the reason we do that is because a lot of these breakout guys, you need a catalyst, or just it they don't hit right away and you can't trust them right away. Like Logan Thomas, when he finished tight end 3, he was tight end 26 through 5 or 6 weeks, right? Trey McBride, when he broke out, he was stuck behind Zach Ertz for weeks.
yeah.
Last year, Jonathan Smith, first 4 weeks, 1 catch, 0 catches, two
Yep.
catches. Like he had the one game with 5, but like you can't start that guy. So
Nope.
that's the plan. So you take somebody like that, and then on the bench, you just pick your favorite super high risk, super high reward guy. An Arroyo, you know,
Yes.
Pitts truthers.
Yep.
That's where you can be a Pitts truther. If
Yeah.
you take Tucker Craft and you take Kyle Pitts,
Yes.
you've now gotten safety, you've given yourself a chance at upside, and you didn't have to take them in the first 100 picks, not even close. You can draft 5 wide receivers and 3 running backs and probably your quarterback and then take those 2 guys. That's
Exactly.
the game we play. Dalton Kincaid, that's where you do your, those bets where it's like, man, I don't trust this guy at all, but you don't have to, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So that's the game. And a tight end that's come from outside the top 17 in ADP 13 years in a row now, whether it's Evan Engram twice, Darren Waller, Sam Laporta, Johnny Smith. You go back through time to Julius Thomas. Julius
Yeah.
Thomas is on. Julius Thomas was not even so undrafted that his ADP was like 10 and 40.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're talking about, man. These guys come out of the woodwork. Robert Tunyon, like, and then during the season we find them. That's it. It's
And
basically
to this, to the point to the beginning of the tight end conversation is that doesn't happen at the wide receiver position. It just doesn't happen. Like Puka Nacua, yeah, once.
the
That's not.
scheme was growing on Nakua though, even before the
It
season.
was. It was.
Like
It was.
once you
I
start
I have the
seeing that the
receipts.
guy has
Yeah.
a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the receipts. So it's
Yeah.
like, we were saying it. Like it was like you go back and enough people have the receipts, like you talking on the shows and talking with Derek Brown and stuff. It's like those guys when they hit, it's so rare to have a guy coming from nowhere. But like we have guys at tight end come from legit nowhere. Even
Yeah.
like you forget that like Dalton Schultz was like he wasn't even the top guy drafted on. He wasn't even the top tight end on the Cowboys drafted. It wasn't Peyton Hendershot. It was the other guy.
I
Some
was
guy.
getting most of my Puka Nacua after the rookie draft, but before the season because of the steam and understanding like what was going on. I remember I made a tweet before week 1 of Puka's rookie year, and I said, if you're desperate, you can start Puka, week 1 in your dynasty lineup. And people were like, because obviously I play in a lot of deeper leagues, and obviously I didn't think of him as a top 36 player at the position, but I thought he's got a little bit of punchiness if you need a little bit of crazy upside. And sure enough, what did he get? Like 15 targets. I mean, I did not expect that.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have said that. Expect around 15 or 20 targets from this motherfucker.
We should start doing that. Get enough clips out there where we're like, yeah, Elijah Roy is probably gonna have 13 targets
Not how
week
I
one.
not how I
Yeah.
roll, but I mean, I think that's actually the thing because it puts in your mind, like, because if you follow me, like, I mean, not to say that I'm some genius, but I mean, I'm a person that's going to give you that, and if you're like,
Right.
that's interesting, so that's actually more the point than all the other bloviating that happens on Twitter anyway. So
Exactly. It's like, well, here's what you got to do. You got to figure out what's likely to happen and what's
and what's
possible.
possible?
And
That's it.
early in drafts, we lean into certainty, right?
Yes.
I want Jamar Chase playing with Joe
Right.
Burrow,
Right.
right? Later in drafts, I lean into uncertainty.
Right.
because there's so many low upside plays that have no chance of hitting, yet
Correct.
people will draft them because they play for a good team or or with Dallas Goddard, that's a player that gets drafted because you're supposed to,
That's
right?
right.
Like I'll
Yes.
just take Dallas Goddard here because you're supposed to take. Like
Yeah.
someone's got to take him, right? You're supposed to take him, but like he's never finished higher than tight end 10.
He
Like
literally
no,
needs a severe injury to hit. Like,
yeah,
he needs
last year,
Smith or
yeah.
AJ Brown to be no, he does. He needs one of those 2 guys out.
And it has to be severe because if they come back like they did last year for
Bingo.
fantasy playoffs, you're cooked.
You're cooked.
So,
Yeah,
like, forget about that. Just start using your imagination on what's possible. Like,
right.
what if who? Okay, Calvin Ridley. Who's the next best pass catcher on that team? And if you think it's Chigakonkwo, good. If you think it's Tyler Lockett, good. If you think it's Eli Ayamanar, good. Like, just figure out who you think it's going to be. Because if Cam Ward comes out and plays hucket chucket football like everyone is scared he's going to, that's good for fantasy football.
Xavier
Like I don't,
Restrepo.
yeah, Xavier Restrepo, like why
Yeah.
his friend from school. There's a narrative
It
there.
is actually
Like, of
possible. Slot guy, it's possible.
course,
It's
but
crazy stuff
with
possible.
that crew, anything's possible
Yep.
because like no one is the clear guy after Ridley. So
Yep.
like, and again, like the concerns on a guy like Cam Ward aren't that he's going to be conservative or whatever. It's that he's going to come out and play like Jay Cutler or
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? But like
And and
Jameis
and and
Winston, that's
understanding that
fine for me.
what's likely there is what's more like what happened in, the last year with the Patriots and the Packers where nobody hits there. Nobody
Right.
gets there. That's more likely, but what's possible is that somebody does a thing, you know?
And why and here's the beautiful part about the tight end. This is where positional scarcity comes in. Because if all those players get a similar number of targets, the targets for the tight end are more valuable. Look at
Yes.
the Patriots last year.
Yeah.
All those guys got a bunch of equal number of targets or whatever.
Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry was a tight end 1 in fantasy football.
Yes.
His targets are more valuable in fantasy football. That's where the scarcity comes in.
Yep.
People overvalue at the top end, they devalue it at the back end, where it's like, I look at the Packers too with Tucker Kraft. If all
Yep.
those guys are going to get 75 targets, the tight end, those targets are way more valuable to that player than anybody else.
Yes.
All we need at tight end is 90 targets. That's what we want. 90. At
Yep.
wide receiver, I need them 100. Unless you can guarantee me 20 carries, I need 100 minimum. But
Yes.
at tight end, you can be top 5 tight end with 90. That's
Yes.
the barrier.
Yep. Let's finish the show with some running back talk. I don't know. I don't even know how to start this conversation other than to say I think there's some values for sure. I think the running back position, every single year we see injuries, every single year we see timeshares where we don't expect it. Every single year we see, just a level of attrition that we can't plan for at all. Last year we saw the least amount of that we've seen in maybe 10, 15 years, I guess.
Right.
We got to expect it to return. But even outside of that, if we just imagine everybody stays healthy, where have you been seeing some of the values that you feel are the strongest in it can be redraft anyway, just to sort of start to point out, because here's the thing at running back with in Dynasty, how long are you planning for anyway? There's really only like 3 or 4 players that you're saying, oh, in 3 years there'll be a starting running back. It's like 3 or 4 players legit that can say that with any level of certainty outside of injury. And so that means you're playing in a 1 to 3 year window max, even with a 24-year-old back. So I still think it almost is a redraft mentality, even in Dynasty with running backs.
Yeah, and that, even if you want to say the other way around, that only applies to half the teams at most. Because if I'm
Right.
winning, if I'm playing to win, I go full redraft mentality. Like if I'm already
Right.
in an established league, I play like it's redraft. Like the rankings are no different because all I'm trying to do is build the best lineup I can. Right? Like that's the
Yes.
plan. So for me, when I look at the landscape in all formats, the name that jumped out to me, and I just posted an article and a thread over on both wherever I am. I'm on Reddit and Twitter and Blue Sky. Like where I just try and share it wherever I go. But I on Kenneth Walker,
Yeah.
because you said if guys don't get hurt. I mean, first of all, this is a guy who's been hurt 3 years in a row. Josh Jacobs started his career. He was hurt 3 years in a row, and then everyone wrote him off. And in that 4th year, he had 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 12 touchdowns. And
Right.
that was on a bad Raiders team.
It was.
Right. This team last year, like you talk about the knocks on him. We'll go through the knocks first. They say he's going to get hurt. Well, okay. he just posted a video on his YouTube of him working out with Cam Ward and Tyler Lockett, and he's running routes and making one-handed catches, and he looks great. So, like, I'm not in the business of predicting which healthy players are going to get hurt. I don't play
Right.
doctor fortune teller. If he's currently hurt, if his eyes hanging
Different.
out or like he's coming off, an injury and he's not showing up to camp, then we move him, right? But like healthy now, good to go. I'm not fading. I'm not playing that game.
Yep, I
His
agree.
offensive line last year, terrible. But they had the least continuity of any offensive line. Their entire right side of the offensive line was hurt in and out all year long. Their center retired during the season. I mean, like, how are Connor Williams retired during the season? He played 11 games and said, "I'm just done playing football like entirely." How are you going to have any sort of continuity? What they did is they went out, they got the best crew of guys for offensive line work you can find in Clint Kubiak and Rick Dennison and John Brenton, and they brought him in. And they used their first round pick on Gray Zabel. This is a
Love Gray
guy
Zabel.
who, yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't know too much about him. I did some research. This guy had a 39.5-inch vertical jump, tied for third ever for an offensive lineman. His burst score on Player Profiler is like 98th percentile, which is great for a team who basically they run zone concepts, which means if you're uncovered, you're getting to the second level. That's important. And then they also, if you line people up on the line of scrimmage, they'll run gap concepts where you're pulling the guard and kicking you out that way, and kind of tricking you that way. Everyone thinks Kubiak just runs zone blocking, but he'll crush you with a trap or a wham or pulling a tackle. Like, go and watch Kamara last year. Like, the running lanes were wide open. The sweeps and the buck sweeps and stuff. Like, he was going untouched for a while. Like, Alvin Kamara was great in this scheme, but Kenneth Walker is going to feast. This guy was also second in forced missed tackles per game, behind only James Conner, right? Like 4.18, I think it was. Just not like, if you get this guy at second level, he's not going down. And he also quietly, Alvin Kamara led the league in targets per game. Kenneth Walker was third. So,
Yep.
like, Kubiak's coming to town. He's, the offensive line, they're going to paper over it with guys like AJ Barner and Robbie Oots, the fullback. And they're going to run heavy, man. And in redraft, if I don't get in Dynasty, I would love to have both Walker and Charbonnet, but it's a little cost prohibitive. Same with redraft. In redraft, the way I'm doing it is if I get Kenneth Walker, then then I'm good. If I don't get Kenneth Walker, then I'll get Zach Charbonnet later. It's too expensive to play the handcuff game for me. I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but I want access some way, one or the other. But I think Kenneth Walker this time next year, if he stays healthy, people are going to realize that all these older backs from that 2017 class, CMC, Derrick Henry, even before that, like, they're getting old, and this guy's going to be 25 years old. Kenneth Walker in a
Yeah.
scheme that is incredible.
Yes. Yeah, I've been feeling Kenneth Walker. I feel like I have him in Dynasty. Let me check actually because I
You're on the
was
clock. You're on the
am I
clock.
really? Maybe I'll
Yeah,
take him. Maybe I'll
40
take
minutes left. If you take him, I'm going to take Josh Jacobs.
hold on, let me look at this because the one thing I will tell you about my dynasty rankings at running back is I look at like I really like Kenneth Walker. After the top, once you get past like Travion and Omarion, it kind of opens up. You start talking about Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, those types of players. It's like, are we
Chase Brown
sure?
went.
Yeah,
Christian
no, I'm
McCaffrey
just
went.
saying
Yeah.
in rankings. I mean, are we sure
Oh,
that we like Chase Brown and Bucky Irving more than Kenneth Walker?
no,
And the
no.
market certainly does. The market certainly does. But I'm just saying, like, if you can trade a Bucky Irving or a Chase Brown for Kenneth Walker plus, you have very similar outcomes this year.
Uh-huh.
In the realm of possibility. I think people are fading Kenneth Walker because of the offense, because of the offensive line, which changes year to year. As you already pointed out, they got better at
Sure.
the offensive line, and the scheme has changed. And Joe Kuvatakis, my co-host of Dynasty Underground, has been saying that this scheme favors Ken Walker over Zach Charbonnet. I don't know if you feel that as well.
Truly. It truly does. Yeah, because it's like it really it's not just zone blocking. I mean, he's got good vision anyway, but the whole emphasis is on getting the running back through to the second level
Yes,
where they can make plays. Like, it's
which is what
it's
the hell
about
he
it's
does.
about vision. Yeah, exactly. So it's about vision. If the other team is bringing only four guys on the line, they run zone blocking. And then once they get annoyed by that and they start putting a guy in every gap and there's like six guys on the line, they turn around and they run a trap. or they run, you know what I mean? Or they pull a guard, or they pull a tackle, and then they get you really into open space. And that's where Kenneth Walker does not get tackled by safeties. He does not get tackled by cornerbacks. He had 47 broken tackles last year.
Mm.
Sorry, he had
61.
61 broken tackles, and
In his
Charbonnet,
fewest carries ever. Yeah.
yeah, and Charbonnet had he had not he had fewer carries, but only by like 20 or 30, and he only had 32 broken tackles.
Exactly.
I like Charbonnet, but
Yep.
I just think Kenneth Walker, if healthy, is like one of the best runners in this
Yes.
league. So I'm very
Yeah.
excited. If you don't pick him here, and then Ryan McDowell does, then I'm gonna be pissed
Right.
because then neither of us will have him.
Yes. Well, I mean, for the brand, maybe I should, but I will look at it after I'm off the air. I'm not going to pick on the air just because I don't think it's very good radio. But
No.
but I will say, like, Kenneth Walker does have that sort of upside. You know, I think in the Scott Fish Bowl, I have him. He was my fourth running back. I picked. I went McCaffrey, Achan, Brees Hall, and Kenneth Walker.
Oh my god,
Kind of like that start.
you're gonna win, dude. You're gonna win the Scott Fish Bowl.
Hey, all right, cool. Kenneth Walker. Yeah, of course, that's all you do. Draft a few fragile running backs, should be good. Just
if
sign
they
the
stay
card now.
healthy. I took
Yes.
McCaffrey too. I wanted Walker.
Yeah.
Zach Reed took Jacobs and Walker. He was on the other side of the draft for me, and I was so salty.
Well, that's the thing too, is depending on where you are, like it's very, very hard to. I mean,
didn't line up. I took
you
Chase
can't.
Brown,
Yeah.
and I
Where,
just
where'd
like
you
I
pick?
felt like I picked at 11.
So I
So
picked
I took
12th, and I got Kenneth Walker there at
yeah.
the
So I got
backside of the fourth,
I
412
thought about I took
or whatever, right?
Christian
Is that right?
McCaffrey, then Jalen Hurts, and then
Yeah,
I
412.
took Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts, and then I took Chase Brown.
Yeah,
And I
that's
felt
cool.
like I felt I had a better shot of getting my guys, Jacobs, Kamara, or Kenneth Walker in the next round if I took Chase Brown there, and then all three went.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker for me was the RB19.
Crazy, bro.
He's not the RB19. I mean, like, that's
My
crazy.
my problem, I drafted in the Springfield Isotopes division with a bunch of other nerds like myself,
Mhm.
and it was too sharp. Paul
Yeah.
Chartrand and Zach Reed. I should have picked like some like random like soccer team. I should have picked like FC Austin in Texas.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that's the move. Like whatever league gets filled very last. That's what I'm doing next year. I'm more gamesmanship on the league decision.
On the league, yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm telling you, sometimes these just like random leagues, the guys are amazing, and sometimes they're very soft. It's very irregular. I can just tell you that much.
It's impossible.
It's
I'll
impossible.
tell you where it's impossible to win. The Boston live draft is too many
Nasty.
sharp. Yeah, it gets nasty, and everyone's mean. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like Mike Fiala
Right.
there is being mean to everybody.
Right. Yeah, you make
Bob
a pick.
Gilchrist.
It could be a good pick that you're just gonna
Yeah,
feel terrible about it for sure.
it's a
Yeah.
blast. And everyone,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the good kind of mean. It's kind of mean you have
Yeah,
with
the
your
Boston
buddies.
meme. Yeah, the
Yeah,
stuff we do. Yeah.
I love it. It's my favorite.
Speaking of which, Christian McCaffrey, 29 years old, you know, was a 0 last year, hurt himself twice. The calf injury coming out was awful. And then that never really healed, and probably got a compensatory injury down the line in bad weather. And then was basically done. He didn't do anything for you. He unearthed, Isaac Garendo and Jordan Mason is the best thing that happened from the McCaffrey injury. But here we are. He could be easily the running back 1 overall, very easily. All he has to do is quote unquote stay healthy. Is that a bet you're willing to make, especially in Dynasty?
Yes, of course. The thing is, in Dynasty, the problem with injuries is it's double counting.
Yep.
Because we're already fading the guys for age
Right.
and the possible drop in production. So for me, the only thing that matters is the age and drop in production. And that also remains true for redraft. If I believe the player is going to have a drop in production, then I will fade them.
Yeah.
If they are currently injured, if tomorrow they come out and say Christian McCaffrey is dealing with a calf injury, I will move him down because he's actually injured now. If he's healthy, I'm not going to play the injury prognostication game. And the thing is, you and I, we have too many spreadsheets, we have too many data points that I almost never need tiebreakers. I know I don't need to go to like gut feeling type tiebreakers where we don't have a lot of data on the information, right? So for me, and I've had this debate with a lot of people that like really do care about trying to guess who gets hurt and who doesn't.
Sure.
My question is always, where do you draw the line?
Right.
Like at what point do you sit back and say, player A, if he plays 17 games, I believe that he will be better than player B. But I'm predicting that player A currently a healthy player, I predict that he will be hurt at some point. So I'm actually going to take a worse player instead and hope that injuries are on my side. And
Right.
no
That's
one can
madness.
ever
Yeah.
no one can ever come up with the right a good example.
No.
They
Yeah.
always use injuries in these debates. They use injuries as an excuse to lower players they already don't like. That's
Yeah.
what I've found for the most part is that like people don't like Kenneth Walker. They like Zach Charbonnet, so they will use injuries there. But they
Yeah.
can't really ever come up with an example of like, oh, Kenneth Walker in 17 games will score more points than um, you know, Chuba Hubbard. But
Yeah.
I'm going to take Chuba because Kenneth Walker is going to get hurt and Chuba isn't. And
Right.
people did that a couple of years ago with Christian McCaffrey, where they took Jonathan Taylor over McCaffrey because McCaffrey was going to get hurt and Taylor wasn't. And then what happened? Christian
Poof.
McCaffrey was the RB2
Yeah.
and
Taylor got hurt.
and Jonathan Taylor got hurt. So it's
Yeah.
like, stop playing that game. Just draft the good players. Whether
Yes.
you draft good players or bad players, you're going to spend all year hoping they don't get hurt.
Yeah.
So don't sit there with bad players hoping they don't get hurt. Sit there with good players hoping they don't get hurt.
Yeah, I think that's right. And as we talked about in, when I started this segment, the running backs that you're betting on, how many years is Bucky Irving going to be a starting running back? How many years going forward is Chase Brown going to be a starting running back? I
Right.
don't know.
And the
2,
action,
3,
you're right.
5. We don't have any idea. So that being said, when we were fading Derrick Henry at age 29, how many years did he have left? Apparently 17.
Right.
It's like crazy. But the one thing I'll say in Dynasty, and you can speak to this or anything else, but in Dynasty, the one thing that happens if right now this season Derrick Henry gets some sort of semi-major injury or Christian McCaffrey gets some sort of semi-major injury, maybe it's not like Achilles but just something where it's like high ankle, pretty much gone for the year. Like this is going to be a lost year here. Their value is almost you just kind of have to hold them because nobody's buying.
Right.
But if a player like Omari and Hampton even popped an ACL, there'd be buyers because he'll be back.
Right.
You could have sold Javonte Williams when he hurt himself because people were like, he's awesome, he'll be back. Probably a good move to have done. But long story short is those younger backs tend to hold at least value where you can utilize them in a trade, whereas the older players you sort of crap out, but their
Right.
cost
Well,
is less. So I guess there's
we're putting that in. Yeah, we're factoring
yeah,
that in already, though.
that's
That's
right.
why it's like the injury prediction doesn't need to be factored in because we're already
Right.
looking at 29, 30-year-old guys and saying that.
Yes.
That's why I think Kenneth Walker is such a value because he's
Right.
actually in the range for me where
Right.
if he were to come out and suffer a major injury this year, he would still be 25 in the offseason next year. Like
Yep.
he would still have that number next to his name at least until um I think his birthday's in like June or something like that. So like, I mean, and even then at 26, you're okay.
You're
Like
okay.
that's why for me, like he's the guy that could come out next year and be in that perfect range where if he finishes as a RB1 and he's still not into like the age cliff, he's still in the middle of the age apex. He could jump from where he's going now because people view him as an older player than he is. I think in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
No, I think that's right on the money. And you asked earlier about handcuffing, and yeah, you're not going to handcuff and redraft because if you're taking Ken Walker and Charbonnet, you're betting against Ken Walker with Charbonnet. So why would you do that? It doesn't help you. You don't have any upside.
Right.
And if Ken Walker gets hurt, great, you had Charbonnet, but
Yeah.
that's not actually that good. Whereas in
No.
Dynasty, I'm totally okay with it because a lot of times it's like, look, I own the Seattle backfield. I'm going to be good. I just, I'll play the one that's healthy or whatever the case. And who knows, maybe there's a trade and I can split that asset in future years. That's also the key in Dynasty where the assets can split. We've seen it many a times. Jordan Mason just this year, whatever, over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Of course. Yeah. And then I mean Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler.
Right. Happens
And
all the time.
and not to mention like, that's one of the few backfields where there aren't many, where if a nightmare scenario occurs and my starting running back for 1 week are Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in my 2 running back spots, you know what?
I'm okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm alive. I'm alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you could be completely dead. I've been completely dead at times in certain leagues where it's like
Yes.
I just have no quarterback. I've had leagues where I just straight up didn't have a quarterback. There was none on
Yeah.
waivers. I don't have one.
Yeah.
Like it'll happen every once in a while in a super flex league where
You start a backup hoping the starter will get 30.
yeah, you just
You
don't
pinch
have a
hits.
player.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there it'll happen at running back too. And that's one of the few teams because like, even with like Bijan and Tyler Algier, I'm like,
Yeah. You can play them
okay, you
both.
know what? He had 800 yards, 700 yards from scrimmage or
Yep.
whatever. But there's a lot of these teams where it's like
You're
Kyron Williams and
dead.
anybody, you're
Yeah.
dead. You know what I mean? Like they just
Yes.
don't play. So like, or it's too split after the top guy. So like, that's not a bad corner. But in redraft, it's cost prohibitive. And
Right.
also, like, how many bench spots do you need in redraft where you're drafting your own handcuffs? Because there
Yeah.
is a point. There is a
Yeah.
point where there's like,
That's
somebody
right.
comes up with like a 10 bench league or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
it's got to be more than 6 for me, I think.
Absolutely. It's got to be a lot. You know, you could talk about best ball scoring too if you're playing in a. There's not very many leagues like
I,
that. So
I'm not
yeah.
handcuffing best ball
Yeah.
either.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't even really. I mean, I can't think of too many redraft scenarios where I'm comfortable doing that. Again, the Javante Miles Sanders is different because they're both cheap. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
that's
That's
that's an
different.
uncertain backfield. That's different though because we
It is
know
different.
who the
Yes.
starter is
We
here.
right,
Like
exactly. You're sort of yeah.
yeah,
You're
last
sort of
year that does pay off when it's uncertain sometimes.
yes.
Because last year I did that in two leagues I won. 2 leagues I won where I drafted, Jonathan Brooks, and then I took Chuba Hubbard,
Right.
and, right, and that turned
Right.
into, like, the RB13, right, which
Yes.
is, like, at that cost point, that actually worked
Right.
out really well. But if you're gonna spend up for Kenneth Walker in the 4th,
What
you're
it
not gonna
yeah.
also take
In the
Sharps in, like,
ninth, right, or
9th. Yeah,
8th or
yeah, yeah.
whatever it is.
It's
Yeah, it's
gotta be,
too
like,
expensive.
Tank Bigsby and Bashal Tutin or something like that.
Exactly, yes. Although I do think Travis Etienne is vastly undervalued right now.
This question is can we not talk about it, dude? Let's talk real quick. Okay, is ETN your guy of the 3 at cost? At
Well,
cost.
yes, for sure, for sure. Yes, for sure, for sure. Yes.
So mine at cost, and people hate this. That's why I don't like but this is my take based on my research, is that my guy is Tank Bigsby.
That's a fair it's not Bashal Tutin.
It could be anybody though. He could,
But
yeah,
it's not at value in my opinion. I
because
would
he's going a little too high. Yeah, that's the problem you run into. He could
yeah,
be
he's a
the
rookie
he
behind 2 guys who are drafted ahead of him.
right.
Like these
He
guys
he
are,
could he
you
could
know,
be like people want him to be like, yeah, I mean, like he could be the big breakout, but like you're jumping out to best case scenario, I think, in a lot of those. And that's how you end up with like he's definitely the one that's most likely to be like Kamani Vidal
yeah,
or the way I look at it is this is that if things pan out the way they did, like let's say Liam Cohen just views things exactly how he did in Tampa Bay. What basically happened is Bucky Irving ended up being the most efficient runner and he surpassed the incumbent. And then the incumbent kind of became the pass catcher because that's what he does well.
yep,
And then Sean Tucker ended up being the rookie third guy that came in for mop up duty. And he
yep,
actually played a decent amount of mop
yep,
up duty. Sean Tucker did.
yep.
So if you're taking that rationale, and I know it's a fallacy in itself to just apply it directly, but last year Tank Bigsby was more efficient than Travis Etienne.
Yes.
He had more carries, more yards per carry, whole deal. Travis Etienne was banged up though, but if it comes out that way, Tank Bigsby could be the starter, and Etienne could be the Rashad White pass catching back, and then Bashal Tutin could be the mop up guy. And we do know that whoever the starter is does have more RB1 and RB2 weeks in general than the backup, regardless of pass down work. And I know Tank Bigsby not been the best pass down player in the NFL at this level, but in college he did a little bit of it. But that's kind of my spiel on that. But I totally get the spiels for Bashal Tutin. I want to hear your Travis Etienne one because I also agree that he could be the full time guy.
There's just a lot of hate for Etienne. He's the
Too
only
much.
first round pick of the group. He is electric and the certainly as athletic as any of them. I know Bashal Tutin is as well. He's still has the relationship with Trevor.
Mhm.
There's still so much there. Cohen could come in and be like, dude, fucking, we're gonna use ETN the best way we know how, which is in space, a lot like they
Right.
use Rashad White, right? Where because ETN is more like Rashad White than Bucky Irving. Like Bucky Irving's a much better runner. He's fucking awesome. Bucky Irving's
Right.
really, really skilled. That's what we liked about him. And then he was small and he was slow. We were like, wait, whoa, whoa, can we do this?
Yeah.
And it turned out, yeah, he's just that good. But
Kyron Williams, same thing.
Kyron
Small,
Williams, same
slow,
thing,
but
right?
then he's
But
just good
good.
at football. Yeah.
And so when we see this, I think Travis Etienne has more of that Rashad White, but I also don't think that there is a Bucky Irving on this team that's like Bashal
Right.
Tutin wasn't that good. He's that electric. He's sort of the when we don't re-sign Travis Etienne, we have Bashal Tutin. I think you're right that Tank Bigsby is the most efficient runner of the football. I think he'll be trusted. I think he'll get maybe, close to 200 carries potentially. But I think when you look at Travis Etienne, if it's sort of a split backfield with the carries between Etienne and Bigsby, I think you're going to see ETN with a lot of pass opportunities. Again, if he can't handle that, then you crap out on ETN. But ETN's so cheap. He's so cheap. Like
So cheap.
you know what I
And
mean?
you should throw it in your folder. You didn't even mention that the one of the most important parts, ETN was hurt. He was playing banged up for a
Exactly.
good chunk of the season. So throw that in your folder. And the other part that I think people don't like about my take is that if Tank Bigsby hits, he likely does not hit as hard
Right.
as one of the other guys hitting. Like the
Exactly.
version where Tank Bigsby hits is like he's the early down back and
Touchdowns. He
he's David
gets
he's David
yeah.
Montgomery. Like,
Bingo.
you know what
That's
I
right.
mean? Like that's the way that he would hit, or worse, David Montgomery, I should say, because like people
Correct.
are like, "Oh, Coop said Tank Bigsby is David Montgomery." You know what I
But
mean?
in
Like
that way,
so
no, you're
in
right.
that way of like he's the early down back and somebody else is doing the pass down work. But like there's a world where if that happens at his ADP, he will be the best. He will be a great value. He will be a
Totally.
tremendous value. So it's like, but people don't like that because they don't want a world where it's split. They want a world where David Johnson returns a kick for a touchdown and then he
Yeah.
becomes the RB1 in like 2 weeks, which is
Yeah.
like that happens that happens basically with two players, Alvin Kamara and David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Not
David
David,
Johnson.
and
Yeah.
David Johnson, where it's like
Yeah.
they were buried, then they were just so good that they trade away Adrian Peterson. It's like people think that that's going to happen. That happens once,
And it
whenever
might.
the Haley Bob comic comes around.
It might happen. I mean, but yes, it's not something that I'm planning on. I just
Yeah,
think ETN poses great value considering, his sort of, like I said, his draft capital, everything about him, and it's a new coaching staff, and he's not presumably not injured right now, so
right.
that's a good thing. I want to end with this one. I got to get going because I am on the clock, as you
Yeah,
point out.
clock.
I don't want to time out. That's a faux pas. But I do want to talk about the last one is this dichotomy that has been flip flopping back and forth. Before the 4th of July, I was making the point between Omarion Hampton and Travion Henderson that I kind of liked Travion Henderson maybe as much or more than Omarion, even in Dynasty, because Najee tends to be more of an impediment to opportunity than Ramondre. And Travion has the pass game upside, and he's electric. They both have very similar great draft capital. I don't know. What's the case against it? Now, of course, this changes a little bit with Najee lighting off fireworks in his eyes. What a fucking brainiac move that is. How about don't touch fireworks when you're a fucking multi-million dollar, you know, uh,
Yeah, or just ever,
or
or just
just ever,
ever.
right?
Like nobody, I don't think anybody can afford a finger or an eye,
Right?
and
Like, just
it's
don't
just
do that, bro.
not worth it. Like sparklers, dude. Like
Yeah, just watch
what?
other people, have a beverage, fucking
Yeah.
chill out, bro.
Where do you live where like the firemen aren't doing like sick versions of fireworks? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
this calling as men to make things explode. I completely understand that, but
I'm
like
with it.
it's
Yeah.
just not with my own hands or my
Yeah,
face.
yeah. You do it,
So
bro.
you do it.
Get your dumb uncle. There's got to be a stupid
Yeah.
cousin. Like there's a
Yeah,
guy. It's in your family. You know who it is.
preferably a non-family member, but yeah, if you
But
gotta
yeah, but you know what I mean. A friend or family
somebody
member
else,
that you're
yeah,
like, nah, he'll do it. I got it, man.
right.
Just
I
let
think
him
it was
fuck.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like,
It's
yeah,
not you.
we grew up in Massachusetts where they were illegal, and it's like, nobody even knows how to do it here, so
Yeah.
it's even worse of an idea here, but it's
Yes.
like so not for me, but and again, I'm glad we got to the takes that people like early because people do not like my takes on these players, which I do think early on it will be split. Don't really like taking Hampton and Henderson at ADP and redraft. The big point
Agreed.
on Hampton that you run into is that Greg Roman, if he can avoid it, he does not really love throwing to the running back. He doesn't like the designed
Correct.
pass plays to the running back unless there's screens. He would prefer his quarterback to create and extend the play and potentially run himself. I mean, the biggest example, go look at Frank Gore's stats. With the 49ers, Frank Gore was catching 50 plus passes per game, like per season. Yeah, 50 a game. Now, 50 a season, 50 passes a season. And even in years where he was getting hurt and only playing like 14 games, he was like 50, 60, 70 targets, 70 reception type guy. The 4 years that Greg Roman was there, that number plummeted. In 1 year, he played 17 games and only caught 19 passes, and it's like, it's nuts because the year Frank Gore left and went to the Colts, he was already old at that point, but still turned around and caught like 48 passes. Like it wasn't that he wasn't good at catching the ball; it's that Greg Roman didn't like it. So when you have a situation, Marion Hampton, a player we love, I have in my RB2 in Dynasty. How did you have it? Hendo at 2 or or Hampton at 2.
I
Doesn't
had
it,
Hampton. No, no, I had
it's fine
Hampton
either
at
way.
2,
Me
Hampton at
too.
2,
Yeah,
Travion at 3 for sure, and, I
yeah.
have a lot
But
more Travion because of, again, I played
way up.
Omari and Travion a lot like I played the tight ends, where I felt like if I was at the 102, I can get so much to move to the 105 and still get Travion. So I just would
Right,
rather take the 105 Travion plus. I mean, you
right.
could get like an early second a lot of times. Luther
Mhm.
Burden and Travion Henderson or Omarion, easy for me. So I have very little Omarion for that reason.
Right, and the thing is, he didn't land in a great spot. I mean, like, for a guy that's 226 pounds, we expect him to be, like, the big dog. He showed
Yeah,
up on one of the few teams that has a guy that's 230 plus. Like, he's actually a smaller back. So when you look at the fact that, like, Harris is the veteran, with like old school coaches like Harbaugh and Roman, and then Harris is the bigger back. All signs point to Marion be the guy that mixes in, and with the same, it's like I know it's obviously a long time ago, but we saw even Melvin Gordon had a hard time carving out important roles like goal line and stuff with just Danny Woodhead as a veteran in town. So like it isn't always a given that these guys just come in and take over everything right away. With the Patriots, I'm concerned about a split, but I'm not as concerned about the role because even if it's split, even if Mondre gets the starting work, which he could fumble away or he could get hurt, but even if Mondre gets the starting work, we've watched for years and years and years with Josh McDaniels as
bingo.
the guy call an insane number of pass plays to Kevin Falk or Danny
James
Woodhead.
White. Yeah.
James White had 123 targets and finishes wide receiver 1. James
Yep.
White is the record for while Josh McDaniel was calling the plays, he set the record for most receptions in a Super Bowl by any player. James White is like a
Right.
gold. When I say to people, "Oh, dude, I hope Travion Henderson's James White," they're like, "What, dude? No, dude, I want him to be like." I'm like, dude, I don't think you realize that James White was like incredible. Like James White should have been Super Bowl MVP. Like the
Probably.
floor, I think the floor might be James White, and the ceiling is Kamara or Gibson, or not
Gibbs.
Gibson,
Yeah.
Gibbs, right? Like we want to run out to best case scenario, but like if Travion Henderson is James White, the Patriots will be very pleased.
Yes.
And Travion Henderson will be a very rich man that'll have a long career. So like
Well, it's not really possible for him to be James White necessarily, but I get your point. Like the reason it's not possible is if James White had 4.4 speed, he would have been better than James White. You know what I mean? So like
right,
if he gets the
true.
James White role, he's still better than James White. But
Still better than
the
James White.
point is, even that role is amazing. Like you point out, 100 targets for a fucking running back. Like, yeah, sign me up. What is he going to get? 5-10 carries a game? Sure. That's the thing is like, people will talk about, like I get into it with Trav all the time on Underground. He's like, I'm not sure because of the bell cow situation. It's like, well, the bell cow situation for Omarion is still capped because there's a target upside that's not there, where maybe the bell cow situation for Travion is capped because he doesn't profile as a 20 carry player. But do we really want 20 carry players anymore? Like, not really. We want 10, 15 carry players somewhere in there plus 5 to 10 targets. I mean,
Right.
God, if you tell me a running back's going to get 5 to 10 targets, I want all of them. I mean, honestly, we're kind of talking about this right now. Our mock draft that we're doing, the Dynasty. I'm drafting targets, man. That's all I'm doing. I'm literally just looking at like I swear to God, if you told me nothing else but just told me targets, I would. That's fine. I'll draft just knowing that one stat. Just tell me the targets. I don't want to know anything else. That's the one I want to know.
Yeah. And like for the other guys, the question you got to ask yourself is how good is this offense going to be? If you're a believer in the team, then you want the early down back because we've seen guys, LeGarrette Blount score 18 touchdowns because of Tom Brady. We watched Jamal Williams score 18 touchdowns on the Lions because the Lions are great. We watched Raheem Mostert score a bunch of touchdowns in that role. So both guys, we watched Mark Ingram finish as the RB8 in the year that Alvin Kamara was the RB3. So if
Buddy,
the offense is
I
great,
believe in the offense if we're talking about the Patriots. I
that's
believe.
what I'm saying. So I also believe in the offense for the
I know.
Chargers. So
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Najee Harris and Ramondre Stevenson might also still be values, right?
Yes.
Plus the possibility that everything we said turns out to be overblown and that the veterans are the starters now and the other
Yes.
guys are going to wait their turn, which is also
Yes.
entirely possible. So
Very
like
possible.
definitely things like these are all the theories you got to factor in, but it's baked into ADP for all of them. So I have no problem taking those risks. If you think the Patriots are going to be bad, then sure. But
Yeah.
their over under is set at like 8.5 this year for win
They're making
totals.
the
Like
playoffs. Their
the
schedule's terrible.
you know what teams are set at 9.5? The Broncos, the Bengals, right? The Rams, like good teams that made the playoffs are set at 9.5. They're set at 8.5. So,
Yeah.
like, if you think they're bad, fade Ramondre Stevenson and just bet on the under on the win totals.
There's one other thing to consider. Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel drafted Travion. They did not do anything with Ramondre. They're just inheriting Ramondre.
Well, Ramondre was technically there for the last year that Josh was there. So he has been, he even said this year, he's like, I know the scheme because I got yelled at a lot. When I was
Good point. But, insofar, look, the Chargers, they went out and made a priority of getting Najee and then still added Omarion. So they do have a plan for both, I think. I don't think they brought in Najee like, well, just in case they've had a specific plan for him. He wasn't a backup plan. He was a priority plan, at least at the running back position. Of course, if he blew his eye off, is he going to be all right?
Dude, I have no idea. I got to see him, bro. Please.
Is there
I'm
any
hoping
fucking Zapruder film or something that we can? What's going on? Is
you
he good?
Think, usually that leaks, man. I don't know, dude. They're saying that he's been on video calls, but I'm saying, hey, you know what? Post one picture. I'm surprised Schefter's spies haven't got in there. You would think that this is where Schefter or TMZ would get us.
We need a TMZ on Najee Harris. Like, this is what I need. Yeah.
That's the one service that they're pretty reliable at, is that when something comes out, it's ratty, but you can trust that it's true.
Well, let's go, Los Angeles listeners who are listening. Go get a fucking pic of Najee and get in there.
Yeah, climb a telephone pole, right? Yep. Whatever you got to do.
Whatever
hide
you got to
do. Hide in the mailbox, right?
Yep,
all
absolutely.
The classics,
yeah, you can figure this out. I mean, the information's out there. Freedom of Information Act. Go ahead and find out where he lives. Spy on Najee Harris. Get him in a candid moment, and that's worth some money to me. I'll pay. We'll pay. Untold sums of money for a close-up picture recent of Najee Harris. So there it is. Your assignment. Buddy, we did a podcast. You're the best. We could talk forever, bro. We could just stop talking about football and just talk about anything like we were before we started the show. I love you, brother. You're awesome.
I hope they to tell Trav to clip that. If it was recording then, tell him to clip it and throw it right now at the end for the outtake.
Yes.
That'd be
absolutely.
Fun. If they want to hear about slides and kids and stuff. But yeah, you got to go because you got to make this pick. I got to go because I got the show tonight. You guys can find me SiriusXM channel 87, 6 to 8 p.m. all week this week, usually Thursdays and Fridays and Sunday mornings. All my work's at fantasyalarm.com. You follow me at Coop A Fiasco. I always tweet out any free information and articles I have. If you like the stuff you heard here, get a copy of the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide. I'm updating all my rankings this week, getting everything fully updated with all the training camp news and stuff. So if you like my takes here, you can have them all. You can just have them all. Just get a copy of that draft guide at Fantasy Alarm.
And I will tell you, Andrew Cooper is one of those guys who is one of the people that the concentric circles of dude who knows what the fuck he's talking about in a real way and is a fun to listen to combined. There's some guys who are good radio dudes who are like, they got a good radio voice and they sound good and whatnot, but they don't know shit. And then there's dudes who know what the hell they're talking about, but you can't listen to them for a second on the radio. My brother here is the best in the business. I absolutely think you're awesome. I love you. So great job. Thanks for being here.
I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from you. I just listened to the Jax Falcone, the best there's ever been, brother. So I think it's a matter of time. I got to reach out to the people who know people. We should get our own show on the Sirius XM airwaves.
Let's do it. I'm in. Let's go. On behalf of everybody here at the Undrafted, on behalf of everybody here at the Undroppables, on behalf of the greatest podcast producer to ever walk the land, Mr. Michael P. Duncan. You have been joined by the fiasco, Andrew Cooper. I am Jax Falcone, and we are